thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
On today's episode of the Scooby Panel, Nikki and Wendy meet illustrator, cartoonist, and graphic designer Scott Neely.
How we doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
Very good.
Good.
Just another day in paradise. I just got off the internet. I was going back and forth. I did an audition and they sent me some revisions and I was getting close to 7 and I'm trying to read these revisions and it's like right before the holiday weekend and I'm trying to figure this stuff out. Luckily, they're still there in the office to send an email reply back.
Oh, that's good. Was it Scooby related or?
No, it's for another thing. Hopefully I just did an audition. It's not for Scooby. It's with a brand new property. It's more of an original thing.
Oh, okay.
So I'm lucky to be able to get in with this place to expand my horizons a bit more because I told them, I think I got put in a box being with too much Scooby. So it does
Is there such a thing as too much Scooby, though?
Probably not, but
I think I've often overstayed my welcome sometimes. I don't know, not always, but yeah, sometimes I always feel like, especially late, I should have taken some other people's advice when they used to say, like Springsteen used to do an album for the fans, one for him, an album for the fans, one for him. And I was like, I should have probably had done more of my own stuff in between the Scooby stuff. Because you do get labeled as a corporate person. So
yeah.
But I'm not here in my studio, so there's no Scooby stuff around, but I do have Scooby stuff all over the place.
Oh, that's cool.
I did find a giant 20-inch Pikachu that I used to have back in like 26 years ago when I drew Pokemon. That was one of the first things I worked on, and I found him. He's beautiful shape. And he sits he could sit in this whole chair. That's how big he is. But I used to have that stuff going around. So I have Scooby stuff all over still, even though I did purge quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. We're very excited to have you here and talk to you. And you didn't get any of the questions ahead of time because you said that you didn't need them. So if there's anything, because this isn't live, so this will be edited before it gets put out. If there's anything that you decide that you don't want us to use, just let me know and I will edit it out.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing secret. There's no secret marriages or nothing. Well, I was editor of a local magazine before, and back in like 2006 or 7, I went to go interview a young Blake Lively and Amber Tamblyn, who came to Philadelphia to promote the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. And it was the day after that TV series that Amber Tamblyn was in called Joan of Arcadia, and you were not allowed to ask her anything about that show because she just got canceled. So, but anyway, let's get this show rolling.
Yeah. So can you tell us how you became interested in drawing?
Oh, God, I've been drawing since I was a kid. And basically, I had learned to read through comic books. That was my main thing back in the day. My mother had gone to the store and got me Spidey Super Stories, which is a comic book in the 70s, which was through the Electric Company, which is on par with Sesame Street. It was a little bit older. And Marvel Comics did this comic book called Spidey Super Stories, and it was kind of watered down, mega simplified, but they had guest stars and all the time. And that was it. I had to know what was going on. And that was really my introduction to superheroes. But I've always had superheroes and this love of comic books that have always gotten me my passion kind of going for it, even though they're a lot of work.
Yeah. So who was your go-to cartoon character when you were a kid?
Oh, either Spider-Man or Batman. I know you're thinking, oh, it's gonna be Scooby-Doo, but no, I'm not a huge. I don't love Scooby-Doo. I like it a lot. I certainly watched it, and I loved those painted backgrounds
Yeah.
on the original show. And I do collect a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff. I have a lot of the model sheets and such.
Mhm.
And a lot of the original model sheets were always better than the actual shows because you just couldn't get that quality. If you
Yeah.
look at the Scooby-Doo and the new Scooby-Doo movies, when you see like the turnarounds for like Dick Van Dyke or something, some of those,
Mhm.
the actual work that was put into these shows, you just couldn't do that on a frame by frame basis.
Mhm.
But I would say basically Spider-Man or Batman was pretty much it. And a lot of my love of Batman comes from Adam West.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though I wasn't there when it aired, I saw the reruns. It's the same as my love for Star Trek. It was raised after it was already over, and it came, through reruns. And
Mhm.
The Mego action figures, back.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm an old man.
It's okay. We're old too.
Uh,
Everybody's old here. It's all good.
Have you always been a freelance artist, or have you done work in some of the major studios?
no, I worked inside the Franklin Mint. I had done work there for product design and then conceptual design for products. Um, that's actually where I did my I was working on Pokemon on the side as I was working at the Franklin Mint, and that was where I did my Scooby-Doo audition. It was in the Franklin Mint, and I had to do two pieces, which I still have. I kept them. Um, that actually got me the gig I had gotten through. I had done Pokemon for Golden Books, and the guy I had knew his girlfriend worked there and gotten me in. That's they knew me from Pokemon, but they said, "Well, we got this other license coming up called Scooby-Doo." I said, "I've heard of it. I know that." And they said, "Would you like to do an audition for it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I had done my audition piece. You had to do two pieces in black and white, just scenarios they gave you, and then you just had to go off and draw them. And I went up doing those two pieces in the Franklin Mint in between my time, and then wound up mailing up copies of them. This is pre-internet, basically, still. And I wound up getting picked to do it. And that was the fall of 99. It was October of 99. And that led into a ton of work.
Mhm. How much would you say between then and now, percentage wise, just a rough estimate, has been Scooby for you out of everything that you have done since then?
Hell, Scooby's been good. I mean, he bought, I mean, overall, he's bought a car, like half a home. I mean, he's done a lot of good things for me. It's
Good.
been 90%.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I have to be honest. I've been very fortunate. It's only been of late when I complained to Nikki about the work that uh, uh, I never really had to go out and look for work before. The
Mhm.
studios would just give my name out, and I'd get an email or a phone call from someone saying Warner Brothers or Disney gave me your name. They said, "We're doing this." They said to get you to do it. And that was like an awesome feeling. I
Cool.
recently had done Phineas and Ferb again, and there was a woman at Disney I haven't talked to in 10 years. I worked on Phineas and Ferb 15 years ago, and out of the blue, I get an email saying, "Hi, we got the license to Phineas and Ferb to do new comics, and Disney gave us your name." And I was like, "Wow!" That's like one of the cool things
Sure.
that
Sure.
I've had.
So did you ever at any point have any desire to go into animation, or has your heart always been for in-print work?
I got to tell you, I really love the medium of storytelling of comics. I love the creation of stuff, the actual animation stuff. You're taking one little part. I don't know if I had the temperament or the mentality. If I worked on a Pixar movie and I was given one segment to work on that was 6 minutes long, and you just stay with that to make sure it's perfect. The amount of time to stay on that one segment, I don't know if the boredom would get to me.
Sure.
Whereas a lot of my stuff is more immediate, quick turnaround. Well, except for recently with the approval times. But with a comic, you would draw it. Uh, the one comic I did that I wrote, I had written it in 2 weeks. I had drawn it in another 2 weeks. Uh, we had colored it and all, and I held control of that. And then DC printed it. It was like 2 months later. I mean, it was a fast turnaround between talking about it and then seeing it out there. And I like that, the immediacy of it.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I don't know if I could have stayed the tediousness or the I am freelance, but there's a different freelance nature of living in California, being freelance and going from show to show and having a show that just is gone if it just doesn't click.
Sure.
I just had this recently because I had a piece of my art, which I put up on my blog, that NBC Universal licensed the piece of my art to use on the TV show Suits LA. And I never did see what office it was used in. I know the person's name, and I just couldn't sit through it. And apparently nobody else could because it just got canceled.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
the frequency of you're in and out of work
Hmm.
is that can really grate on you, especially in
Sure.
animation, because it is. And right now, I see so many talented people on LinkedIn. I mean, names you would never see. When I see a name like Colette Sunderman, who you should know from the Scooby movies, who's like, "Hi, I've known her for 20 years." She's like open for work, and I'm like, "Whoa, that's like serious." When I see someone of her caliber,
Mhm.
I mean, I know what a lot of Scooby stuff has been canceled within the last couple years. It's been brutal.
Yeah. It's a different climate right now for sure.
mhm.
But even still, if we think, I was just thinking, is there even a Scooby-Doo coloring book out right now in the stores? And I can't find anything out there. Even in 2019, on the 50th anniversary, you think someone would have got that license, bought it, they would have got my whole archive of stuff and just
Mhm.
printed it. That would be like printing money, and there's like nothing out there content-wise.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's really a strange time.
I can't remember the last time a comic book or a coloring book came out.
No. Sometimes you can find ones that are like at a dollar store, but even those, I think at this point are probably close to 10 years old and they're just recycling old stock that they've got. There's really not. We talk about this a lot, how given the huge archive of Scooby out there that Warner Brothers has access to, and we just feel like they're not using it, and it just feels like free money for them if they were to just put stuff out and do more with it, and they're just not. And then canceling stuff on top of it. Yeah, everyone's very perplexed about what's going on over there.
Hmm.
I don't know.
If you go into the Dollar Tree, which I did, I just picked up some of my old Mickey Mouse work, which is still in print. It doesn't
Yeah.
have my name in it, but I have my original books from way back that reprinted the work, but it's still out there. Like you said, it's older work. But
Mhm.
even Bendon, who does a lot of the reprint stuff, they're not even doing anything.
Yeah.
There's no actual publishing programs. Dalmatian Press was a fantastic place to work for. Golden Books was more short-lived, and then they started reprinting my stuff. And all of a sudden, Dalmatian Press came into my life, and they gave me across the board all kinds of stuff, licenses and Scooby, and they had a publishing plan with all kinds of great product for Scooby. And all that goes back to the Warner Brothers archive, and it sits in there. All you got to do is buy the license. I remember when the Dalmatian Press license, what they paid for that license for Cartoon Network and Scooby. And you're printing money. All you get the whole archive, InDesign files. All you have to do is slap your branding on it, change the cover design or something, and then give it to the printer. It's good to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You had mentioned the comic book that you wrote and illustrated. What was it like to write and illustrate? And is it easier or more difficult to illustrate your own writing or vice versa?
Well, I got to tell you, I had a blast doing that. Writing Scooby is absolutely easier than drawing it. That's my opinion. It was a nice change of pace. And when I got to like page 4 or 5, and I had like 9 panels on the page, and then I'm going, who the hell wrote this? Because now I got to plan how to draw it. But I had a blast doing it. I had gone back to recently to DC Comics to ask them if they're interested. But the Scooby comic is, I'm not saying washed up. It's still there, but they're not publishing every month. It's every other month.
They're
And
no
then,
longer publishing it right now.
oh, they stopped it
They
completely?
have stopped it. Yep.
Wow, this is sad. See, this is breaking news. I didn't even know that.
It was someone just I'm not going to mention his name because he removed the post, but he got an email and he posted it on Facebook, and he has since removed it. But they did say that Scooby comic is on hold, and my guess is it may be just indefinitely.
Wow. See, that was the point. When I pitched my Return of the Creeper, I had this big, expansive storyline I had thought up, and I went right beyond DC, went right to Warner Brothers with it. And they liked the pitch of it. They said, well, you got to do it in 10 pages. I said, because we're not even doing 20-page or 22-page stories anymore. And to save money, I understand this. We're reprinting old stock, like an Archie comic, and we do one new story in the front. So if you can get it to 10 pages, which is hard to do, you're doing a quick in and out, but it was a lot of fun. That's kind of depressing now you're saying this, because it was the Looney Tunes and Scooby were every other month. And then I talked to the editor a couple months ago, and she was like, well, you gotta, the way we cycle around the creative teams to give everybody some work, there's so much of a gap. You really couldn't make a living doing it anymore, even if you were the colorist. But this may be the state of, that's really depressing. See, now you brought me down.
I'm sorry.
But I will tell you a fact. Most people do not know this, and this is an absolute stone cold fact. Scooby-Doo was like the #1 comic DC published, the most copies of. I had this from the inside. They don't like to admit this. I was told this from the #1 comic, even over when Jim Lee was drawing Superman or Batman. Scooby was the #1 published comic that they did for the numbers.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing, the amount of reach it had, that they couldn't continue on. I did some comic work for overseas for was it Shibested Forlang, which is a Swedish place that had Scooby comics, and I got them to reprint some stuff over here for DC just to fill up gaps. But this may be the state of the comic market. Again, how much Scooby content is out there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that maybe they'll do digital comics instead of actual releasing?
Why not just release the archive they've already got?
Yeah.
I mean, if they repaid royalties, I'm sure Joe Staten would love to see some royalties and stuff for all of the stuff he was doing long before anyone, when he did that comic for DC when they started. I would like to see that. Honestly, there's so much content. There's too much of too much. If you just focus on Scooby, like I see the backs of your rooms there, and you have Scooby product. If you just focus on that, I got so much stuff. I'm looking off to the right of me here, and I got, I mean, I got oddball stuff here, but I got like a Starsky and Hutch puzzle, and then I got a Smurf board game, I got a Yogi Bear board game, and a Lone Ranger board. I'm all over the place with my collectibles and stuff, that I can't focus on like one thing. But at a certain point, how much can we produce? Even if I do stuff on my own, we're trying to get eyeballs on our particular things. You have a podcast. How many people will see this? Because you got to generate interest to get people to watch your stuff. And if they're into Scooby, great. But I don't know. It's a weird market right now. There is a lot of content in an archive. I did a lot of fantastic work for Capstone Publishing, and we did 14 You Choose books and others. I did like 28 books for them. And I'm wondering, well, why haven't they called me again? Well, they're still printing now. They're making nice little box sets
Mhm.
of the work I did 10 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's still good. I'm proud of that work. I'm still pleased with it. But if you were never introduced to that, it's all still available, which is great.
Yeah.
When they reuse your designs, do you get anything for that?
No,
No.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Listen, I just found out recently, I put it up on my uh blog that I found there was a IDW in 2015 reprinted a bunch of my Cartoon Network stories. Um, it's in a Cartoon Network All-Star Omnibus. I had one Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and I had three Ed, and Eddie comics in there. And I just found that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they did it. In 2021, I did an interview with Stephen Kent, who wrote this great book about Star Wars called "How the Force Can Fix the World," and it's using like Star Wars metaphors for all the stuff going on today. I thought it was a great book, and I mentioned to Stephen, said, "You know, I did a Star Wars trading card back in '95, and I was so lazy. I said I was going to get him a scan. I went to eBay and I saw this card, and it's my card, but it didn't look like my card. Well, Topps reprinted it." In 2021, they put it back in print, which I'm thrilled with because they picked mine. So it's like I'm fresh again. I got fresh content, even though it's old. Um, but I get no royalties for that. I get my flat fee out of the gate. That is the work for hire. That is it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I like to do with my Phineas and Ferb covers I just did. I did the art physical on paper, so I can then sell the thing. The comic rate for the covers was good. Mad Cave showed up for the cover. They did great by that. But I had the physical artwork I then put on eBay and sell to fans because Phineas and Ferb has a huge fan base.
Yeah.
But I hope this doesn't sound depressing to people. This is like the this sounds like the artist zone when we go up to the Lanarch Diner, which was in that movie with the Playbook movie with Bradley Cooper. That was the Lanarch Diner. That's where they shot that film, that scene in the movie. And we used to go up there, and it was just the bitching and moaning of the artists going on with, oh, this sucks and this sucks, and now we have to worry about AI. I will say that the place I'm auditioning for right now, in their contracts, they have a clause in there that you cannot use AI in any of your work, which is fine by me. I have no interest. I am holding out, much like the great character designer Steven Silver, who said he thinks the physical, tactile thing will come back into play. That this generation who's looking at their phones will grow to appreciate a something in front of them that they can touch and hold and feel. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping maybe that
I
comes
hope so. Yeah.
That would be nice. Yeah. One of my questions was, how do you think AI is going to change the animation industry?
Oh boy. Oh, it's going to be huge. They just had an article online. I just saw the clip. At Stanford University, they scanned in all the Tom and Jerry cartoons and they created a 1 minute Tom and Jerry original cartoon based on typed prompts. Tom walks into an office building. Tom walks up to the elevator. Tom's sitting in his office typing on his computer. And you watch the clip and it looks like a classic Tom and Jerry that you might have missed.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. I can't crap on it. When you watch it and Jerry's chewing on this little wire, it looks off. There's something not there yet,
Mhm.
but I can't complain about it. It's scary. That's the stuff where you're scanning everybody's work. I came across this site that had AI versions of artists like Adam Hughes, uh, Jim Lee, and they use AI to create, they scan enough of your work in and they try to recreate your look or your feel of your art. And it doesn't look right. It looks off on some people. but some of it is scary. This is not like when Photoshop first came into play and people were scared of, oh, this is going to steal the industry. Da, da, da. Photoshop, you have to physically draw, paint, and whatever with your skill. It's not regurgitating stuff that you scanned in and then shot back out. I've seen some incredible stuff that teachers have put up. They didn't have time to do a cartoon face drawing. It was on the BBC.com. I saw this article. This teacher, just to point out the face, spots on your face, your eyes, your nose, for kids to write the body parts on. And they got a pen and ink line drawing. And I sent it to my friend Jamar Nicholas, who's a graphic novelist. And we were both like, this is crazy good. And it was done like 15 seconds. What do you need me for? Granted, what I might have more heart or soul to it because maybe I'm adding more into it. But this is a tool. And you got more people now who are proudly saying, I'm an AI artist, whatever the hell that means. And they get bashed whether you go on Reddit or something. I said, well, no, I'm an artist. I can draw on paper. I can do this stuff physically. But Photoshop has opened up the doors across the expanse. I have a 256,000 color palette that never runs out. You don't have to worry about magic markers or paint or any of that stuff. You just never run out, but you have to have the skills in order to do that.
Yeah. So going back to Scooby, this is your 26th year working on Scooby-Doo, which is pretty exciting. And I've heard from some artists that they don't like drawing Scooby because he's very difficult. And because I feel like you're an expert, what is your opinion on drawing Scooby? Is he difficult to draw?
No, it's a matter of proportions. I guess it's equivalent to maybe people saying if they're drawing horses. Horses are always the hardest thing to draw when you're doing animated horses. Scooby, no, it's usually size proportions when you draw one character to another sometimes. Shaggy to Scooby, but I've been doing it so long that maybe I don't think about that. But I would have problems with other licenses where you had to get Phineas and Ferb, and then Disney would change the size chart of the characters. But no, I haven't really. I don't know how many people would say. Have you gotten classic artists that I would know who say, "Oh yeah, he's tough to draw"?
Yeah. They've actually posted it online. So Scott Shaw and Robert Alvarez both said that they hated drawing Scooby.
No, I've never had that problem. I've always done it for this the thing, and I was gonna do sketch cards of just headshots and stuff. I've always done that stuff for kids. If I met them in a convention, they want a quick Scooby, I could bang out a Scooby head pretty quick. Like in a minute. You basically have it really down and it looks like, oh, but when you're in that zone, again, I'm in that box where you get labeled as a Scooby guy. But if I work on other licenses, I can do that stuff too. I don't know. I've never had that problem. Daphne, sometimes with her eyes, the way they turn from the side view, the 3/4 view sometimes. But no, I've not had that issue.
Yeah. I saw on your website that you did a Warner Brothers concept art of Baby Scooby and Baby Yogi.
Yes.
And the art style is so, so cute. Oh my gosh.
You like Baby Yogi? Baby Yogi. Oh shit, that looks like mine.
Yes. Like this looks just like what you drew. And I was wondering if you knew if this was based off of that.
You know what? That was done. The great Kevin Bricklin, who I immensely miss, he was the head of the global publishing and all for Warner Brothers. He's now making soft pretzels in California, the Philadelphia soft pretzel. He left Warner Brothers and got the hell out. He invited me in to do the Hanna-Barbera gallery piece, and you had to create pieces of character art that possibly they could turn into actual products. And I submitted a baby Scooby. I think they're on my blog. I'm not sure. I think I did. But I had baby Scooby. And then I had a little Scooby, was a little slightly older baby pup. It was based on my Yorkshire Terrier that I had at the time, real small, in real life. And then I did Baby Yogi, and he told me, I remember he was raving. People loved the Baby Yogi. And he said that was the hit that people kept going back to. And I was like, well, I love Yogi Bear. He's like my second favorite Hanna-Barbera character. But again, that's a character that either people don't remember if you're young, except for the CGI movie with was it Dan Aykroyd doing the voice? Um, yeah, I don't know. You never know what they're going to see on your idea. Once you do this stuff as a token gift, we never got paid for that. We just did it for fun,
Mm.
and you submit the art.
Do you remember what
Yeah.
year that was?
I had to look at the files, maybe 2009 or 10, maybe.
Okay, because this clock and there's a bank too.
Yeah, I've got the
Um,
bank.
Yeah, like these came out in I think 24.
I
Oh,
think
really?
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
so.
they sit there when you do the art, they decorate the walls. Because originally when I did my Star Wars trading card in 95, if you wanted to sell it, not to someone in the community, I did wind up selling it in 2019 on eBay. But you could sell it to Lucasfilm and they would take and frame your card, your artwork, and just hang it somewhere in Lucasfilm. As you walk down the hallways, it was there. And that was the same thing at Warner Brothers. They would print out your art, you gave them to them digitally, and then they would just hang it. So I'm assuming, it might be there. I honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really cute piece of promotional presentation art too from 1991 that Scott Gerald's worked on with Iwo Takamoto, where they did almost all of the Hanna-Barbera characters as like little Hanna-Barbera babies, and they're really, really cute too. But yeah, you do have your baby Scooby on your website, and he's very adorable, but clearly somebody must have seen that in order to make these two pieces that Nikki and I have, because they're so similar to that I don't know, but he's adorable though.
Oh, thank you. I'm very proud of them. But you're very generous throwing me in with those two names that they did work, and they didn't get picked sometimes for when they generate ideas. I had just decided at the time when I did the baby version was because Disney had just done that with Pooh and Mickey Mouse and all this. They did the babyfied versions of characters was hot. And I said, well, why would I do a Scooby? And I just did my version of it. I thought, well, Yogi Bear, why not? Again, it was
Absolutely.
something for fun, which is weird. They didn't even pay us for it. It was just like, I think, would you like to partake in this?
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, that seems to be a bit of a trend in a lot of different avenues of the art world where it's like, well, we're doing you a favor by letting you try out for something. And if we use it, then great. And if not, then oh well, but you're not really going to get paid for it. So I guess I don't know. I don't really know if that's a good trade-off or not to get
Well,
to get maybe some work after.
I am doing the piece I was talking at the beginning of. I'm doing for a place. It is a paid audition, and I
Okay.
did get paid for doing that. And most of my stuff, they are doing paid auditions, but for some stuff, it's like, well, we're just doing a throw together thing. Would you like to partake? I haven't had too much of that, luckily. With samples, I've only had to maybe do a sample to match the style.
Mhm.
Or when I did the Mystery Incorporated book for Scholastic, I had to match the look of the show and I had to match the paint style. But the piece that they used as the audition piece, that wound up being used in the final product. So it was like
Mhm.
getting one piece of the art out of the way first, which was
Yeah.
nice. So you did
Yeah.
get paid for it in the end.
Well, that's good. So we did touch a tiny little bit about on this earlier, but you have definitely illustrated way more than Scooby. Um, you have said that you don't have much trouble drawing him. What characters out of everything that you have been doing, which characters do you find to be challenging to either capture their likeness or get their proportions correct? And also, I would love to know, what is your favorite character to draw?
Hmm. The easiest stuff I've had where I could bang it out. I love Courage the Cowardly Dog and Ed, Ed and Eddie I had down. But Courage I like because you were able, anything could land on that farm and he had to react to it. And that was the fun of creating that part of it. But he was so simplified. It was like a lima bean shape. and you could just draw that. I love that simplified shape. He was the easiest. I got to tell you, the hardest part when you're working with Disney, and I know Mad Cave is finding this out, is Phineas and Ferb. I have an actual poster I could show you because I made it 15 years ago. Because kids, when you would do a speaking chat for kids at the library or the school, and they think SpongeBob SquarePants. Well, it's just a square. Well, no, it's a lot more than that. And then so I made this giant poster. I put the model sheets and made a giant 24 by 16 by 24 poster, and it says, so you think drawing a platypus is easy? And it was Perry the Platypus and Agent P, his model sheets. They're intense. Disney is intense. Even his pattern on his tail is mathematically broken down perfectly, where you got to lay the lines. And you look at that, and sometimes you got to be loose, and you can't. Phineas has a certain amount of points on his head. Ferb with his hair, it's got to lay. Doofenshmirtz, his nose. They'd say, could you make his nose a little longer and a little pointier, or just on the end? It's intense. Where my pen and ink drawings were so tight that when they okayed it, now I have to go ink it. The repetitive nature of that was a killer for me. And if you look at my early Phineas and Ferb work, I did that. And then after that, I got out and let other people ink my stuff. I just penciled it, inked it, and looked at it and just got it the hell out the door. I will tell you this, since this is we were talking about the Scooby comics. Scott Peterson, who works on Phineas and Ferb, worked for DC Comics, and he was when Scooby went to Wildstorm or something in the beginning with that Scooby-Doo Where Are You Now comic first started. He saw my stuff, and he looked at this stuff, and he goes, I submitted the pencils for him. What I do with the art, here's the roughs, And he's like, dude, did you ink it? I said, well, no, it's kind of a rough ink. And he said, dude, you're like doing the work twice. And I said, well, kind of. Yeah, it's kind of an ink, but, he said, dude, just fix it. Put some white out on it, fix it here. Just make yourself happy with it and just take the money and run. You're doing it twice. And he was right. And when I did that, after that, from I think issue 5, anything I did after that was all drawn on 11 by 17 copy paper, which is just crap paper. And if I did a paste over of a panel or a fix a thing but Phineas and Ferb is tough. The size charts, the size of the eye. I mean, there's so much stuff going on there. But again, this was back when I used to get approvals in 3 days to a week and we're good to go. Now you send in the work. It's 6 months to do a cover.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what I just had to deal with.
I loved Phineas and Ferb. I loved watching it with my kids. But whoever created the masks for their live show, those masks were terrifying. They were like these huge heads, and it was hard to watch the show. I'm just saying.
Oh, no, I agree with that. The first time I saw Phineas, which is why you always show him from the side view. You never show him from the front view, unless it's an extreme position, because it's always that front 3/4 view you want to stay within. When you see that physically as a thing in front of you, I didn't even know what it was when they first offered it to me. I didn't know what Phineas and Ferb was. And I had to figure that out. But I like the dynamics of it. I think the stories are great. And I think they're inventive enough. And again, the best part of that isn't so much drawing it. When you're drawing Doofenshmirtz, the best part of the job is drawing the innators. That's the best part of the job. It's like when you draw the Scooby monster. Oh, okay, another mummy or another snow monster, and you got to work your way through that because sometimes the repetitive nature of Scooby. What do you do with it at a certain point?
So you mentioned that Yogi was your second favorite Hanna-Barbera character. So definitely curious who your number one is. And I would also like to know, are there any Hanna-Barbera characters that you have never had the opportunity to draw that you would love to draw?
Oh, all the old classic stuff I would have grown up with. But it's just not, they wouldn't, the way stuff comes around. They brought back the Powerpuff Girls. And they brought back Phineas and Ferb, which is great because that definitely had a fan base. I knew that was coming back. when they ended it, I knew that was going to come back. And when I saw Powerpuff Girls come back, I said, I know P&F is coming back. But in terms of like Yogi Bear, Secret Squirrel, Adamant, oh man, I would love to do that stuff. But there's no like market for it. I sound like the old man in the room because if I said, well, if you got me a chance to draw Batman, how would you draw Batman? My Spider-Man would look like classic John Romita artwork, the father, not the son. Although I like the son's early stuff because he drew like the old man and all that. But he is like, I love the father, the greatest Spider-Man artist ever, John Romita. And you had Batman, you had Neil Adams in the 70s. That's all I saw was Neil Adams, Batman, Superman on the Power Records and all the products you'd buy. And that was how I would see it. I don't even know if I could do that now because it would be too, was that John Romita, it'd be too cartoony maybe. I don't know. Everything's so photorealistic now that wouldn't interest me.
Yeah, Dynamite Comics, I think that's what it's called. They're doing a lot of, they've picked up a lot of the classic, like they did a Johnny Quest. They've done a couple of other ones. I'm pretty sure there's a Frankenstein Jr. coming out. So I was curious if maybe they were eventually going to try and pick up the Scooby license now that it's kind of, DC's kind of done with it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe eventually they'll hit you up to come and do some kind of other classic Hanna-Barbera.
That would be cool. DC had that list where they updated the characters. Remember the Hanna-Barbera stuff in the late 1819, something like that, before the pandemic? Oh man, that was like terrible. There was a day back when Harvey Comics back in the 90s used to do like the Back to the Future comic. I remember auditioning for the Back to the Future comic, thinking, "Oh, this will go on. I'd love to draw the Back to the Future cartoon. That would be great." Any of that stuff, even Casper the Friendly Ghost. Hell, I would have drawn that. That just looks like fun. It's simplified. A lot of my comic book love really died the day Darwin Cook died. I don't know if you know who he is. He did DC the Final the Final Frontier, the comic graphic novel. He did a series called Parker, based on Richard Stark's novels. He's a fantastic artist. He worked on the Batman animated show. He had a great approach. His sense of fun in comic books was what he appealed for. And he used to rail about the darkness of this stuff. Where is it going? There's no sense of fun. And he had that. And when he was going to go on, I'm looking for somebody. And the only guy I can think of right now who has that definite vibe of him is an artist named Chris Samney, who has worked for Daredevil and stuff. He has a Batman comic, Batman and Robin Year One, and it's written by Mark Waid. It's a fantastic book. It's dark with dark shadows, but it has that sense of fun that I'm kind of looking for, and it has that art style, which is more slightly animated but fun. I'm not into the ultra realistic. I love Alex Ross, but if you get enough guys doing that, then it kind of taints it.
Sure, definitely. Is there an underrated comic book property out there? It can be either vintage or modern, that you really love and you wish was more mainstream and known by more people?
I would have loved to have worked on it. The Batman 66 comic. They did that for a short bit. And then they did Scooby teaming up with Batman, which I thought was cool. Again, if I was drawing that, I would have made it look like the Filmation Batman teaming up, not the Super Friends Batman, but the Filmation version of Batman from the 68 cartoon, and teamed him up with Scooby. But the Batman 66 I thought was fun, but again, at a certain point, maybe it runs its course. Whereas a lot of my stuff is older. I just feel like I've been there and I've done that and I've done it better. There's a lot of regurgitated stuff. If you wanted to do your own stuff, if you love the Hardy Boys, which I do, if you love Nancy Drew, go off and create your own. Take those those beats of what makes her that, and create your own, and then you can go off and do it. Because who knows what they're going to do with the actual character, because the TV show, I think that was just on with Nancy Drew, that was Nancy Drew in name only.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
they
it was
just
terrible.
it took the Archie comic. All right, I don't know what to make at it. When they put the Archie comics, now it's more realistic and stuff. It's like, all right, I applaud them for trying something different. But I do like the old Archie comics, Stan Goldberg, that simplistic,
Yeah.
fun nature. It doesn't have to be wholesome or whatever, but I'm just saying that simplistic style where there's a sense of fun to it. That's
Hmm.
what I'm looking for. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm getting that. So maybe I've appropriately aged out of the market. So I save a lot of money on comic books, but I see what's around and I go, okay, but where would I fit into this if I did my own thing? I had a cartoon of my own dog, Alfie, that I wanted to do, and I still want to pursue. And it was him with the bunnies and the squirrels, and it was all the stuff I witnessed him doing in the backyard. But it was like, you have to find a venue. If I just go do it myself, would that be
Hmm.
most fulfilling? Probably, because it has more soul to it than being a corporate thing.
Sure. Sure.
Your Alfie design is super cute. And the squirrels were also very cute. And Wendy, if you didn't see those comics that he made of Alfie, he has squirrels tied to a tree.
Oh yeah, that was actually the tree in the backyard. He would see a squirrel and take off after it. And he would hurt his throat because he pulled the picnic table that the leash was pulled to. And he pulled the damn picnic table. This is a little Yorkshire Terrier. But he would wrap himself around the tree. And I got the idea of tying the squirrel, they would just sit up there and laugh at him. And he'd sit there on the
Yeah.
trunk and he'd look, they sit up there and bark at him, waiting for him to come down. And they'd go around the other side and he's still sitting there and they come down the other side and take off. There's a lot of fun stuff that I thought, oh, this would be kind of appealing to kids. I'd almost rather appeal to little kids than,
Yeah.
bigger kids.
So if you were to be able to pursue Alfie, would you do it as storybooks, comic books?
Oh, I'd be open to anything. I mean, I had worked out pitches again. It's trying to find a venue that would want to take your thing or publish it. If you're not going to self-publish it, you have to find your kind of own venue that where you tried to. I did a pitch at the Capstone back in the time. I didn't really get any real feedback from them. Maybe they weren't looking at the time. But I would be open to a lot of stuff. There's something that's a unique, and I bring this up only as a creator, but I saw this, it was Alfred Hitchcock in an interview, and they asked him what was the best part of making a movie. And he said the initial conception, when you write the script and you make the storyboards, that's the greatest point when you lock everything down. That's your vision. And that's where you have everything.
Yeah.
When you see the actual movie and you make the movie, about 60% of what you wanted is that you actually get like 60% on the screen of what you actually wanted. And it's just diminishing returns because now you got to deal with the actors, the sets, all the other stuff. And that's like the highly creative part of it that I like. The initial creation. I would love to do conceptual design. There's a Disney book called Before the Animation Begins. And it was all that preliminary work, like on Bambi and stuff like that, that was done. Just the conceptual design for how stuff would look in a movie. That's the most creative, awesome stuff. You see this stuff in the J.J. Abrams Star Wars movies, and you're like, why didn't he pick that? This is great, And you see all the like the original Spider-Man movie with Sam Raimi. You see in the making of book, they had the Green Goblin head look just like the comics. Why didn't you do it? Well, it looked a little too much like a comic book. Well, duh. That's what they should have done. You see that stuff. That's the highly creative part, and you just do all this stuff, and you put it out there, and you see if they like it or mix and match, and
Yeah.
then it kind of falls apart from there sometimes because
Hmm.
you don't own the creation. I'm sure there's Scott Gerald's or any of these other guys who have their own thing in their head that they would love to do. Even if you do your own Hanna-Barbera character, I did a character called Moochie Monk, and it was my throwback. I was invited to do a thing for I think it was like an ape charity thing or something like that, monkey thing, and I created a monkey character called Moochie Monk. Originally, I was supposed to work with Paul Dini, and he came to the table with something already created because he didn't have time. And I bowed out of that because I said I really wanted to work with you and come up. And he said, "Oh, I appreciate that," but he just didn't have time to create something. He gave me this stuff already ready to go, and I was like, I don't want to do it. So I did my own thing. I created a character called Moochie Monk, which was a throwback logo, everything back to the classic Hanna-Barbera stuff, but I owned it and I could do anything I want with it. And that was actually a lot of fun. There's only a 5-pager. I think it's on my blog, but
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun for sure. So of all of these different things that you have done and that you work on, comic books, trading cards, coloring books, and any of the freelance stuff that you do, what is your, I'm sure that you must love all of it in order to do it, but of all of the different avenues that you work in, what is your favorite to work in?
I got to tell you, I love coloring books. I collect old coloring books. I have coloring books I bought when the Western House opened up the auction, and they had all these archive copies of books I had growing up when I in the early 70s when I was like 2. And I remember the covers like it was yesterday. And I bought these old books again, and it was like, oh, these are awesome. And now I have my own coloring books. I had a golden book. I had the last little golden book when Golden Books was really Golden Books before the bankruptcy happened. It was that Snow Ghost we adapted into a little golden book. I was the last little golden book. And I'm proud of that. I know for a fact Craig McCracken, who created the Powerpuff Girls, the people at Golden Books, the editors, they were thrilled. He wanted to do a little golden book of the Powerpuff Girls in the worst way. He was so proud of that thing. He did all the art himself and painted and everything because it was a little golden book. And I was the same way. It's just an age, an appreciation thing for that I have. But I love the coloring book, even the adult coloring books, because it's so crazy right now. You got to zen out and just color. Yeah, there is absolutely something to that.
Yeah, for sure. It's so, I don't know, I paint in acrylics. And when I was growing up, there was definitely something about coloring books, even more than anything else, because you would get, this beautiful art on the cover, but then the artwork inside, even though it's just line drawings, for the most part, even the worst coloring book still has some draw to it. Someone took the time to draw it, to do something fun for kids. And I feel like that there's, even in the stuff that they're doing now, you mentioned earlier about how things are lacking in the fun. And I feel like that is a universal problem at the moment in a lot of entertainment, where the stuff that's technically for kids today, me as a kid, I would have had no interest in it. You also mentioned how sometimes things can get a little too realistic. Well, that kind of graphic novel-esque art is really big right now in pretty much everything. And again, it's wonderful, not to criticize it, but it doesn't have that same childlike wonder and the fun that I remember from when I was younger. And there's tons of vintage Scooby-Doo coloring books that pop up online every once in a while, heritage auctions and eBay and stuff. They're beautiful. And I think it's such a shame. I'm so glad that I'm not a kid today growing up, because I feel like kids are missing out on almost everything that we enjoyed when we were young. And it's just not there anymore. And I hope that you are right in what you said earlier, that eventually things are going to come back around, and those people that have not experienced those wonderful nostalgia moments will suddenly have some kind of an epiphany, and they'll see an old coloring book or something and be like, what is that? Let's bring that back. And I like my screens too. I can't really criticize that. I enjoy social media, but I have a huge collection of like beautiful coffee table books with art and all of these things. And like, give me something that I can touch. I can't really touch my screen. It's not the same thing to me. I want to turn a page. I want to be able to touch it and feel it, color in it, whatever. And I don't know. I feel like that's very I feel bad for like the younger generation today because they're just missing out on something that I think was really, really great once upon a time.
Well, they don't really collect anything.
That's
They
true.
they watch everything, they stream everything. Even owning a DVD, they don't care. What do you mean? We can just
Yeah.
stream everything. Well, no, you
Hmm.
can't.
Yeah.
To the love of the old coloring book, like you mentioned, a lot of that was due to the bad art was due to they didn't pay much to have that done inside. The
Hmm.
places I worked for it, they paid great. Dalmatian Press paid great. The stuff that was fun, open, I did a lot of. When you get into DreamWorks stuff, Megamind, that was tedious. They had every little nut and bolt on the robots. It was just like yikes. It was copy paste, draw one, copy paste down the side of it.
Hmm.
That kind of stuff was just tedious for me. Kung Fu Panda, some of that stuff. But again, they have so much restricted control. This is how it has to look. You must be on model. When I did Shrek, Forever After, there was like 5 revisions for one page,
Mm.
and it was like, whoa, what is it? I mean, they kept changing it. Could we settle down? They kept redlining stuff and tweaking it, where it keeps sucking the fun off
Yeah.
of the page. Maybe you might not recognize it on the final page. You think, okay, this is it. But there's so much other work that they hold.
Hmm.
Right
Hmm.
now with work, places that publish stuff, you have to come, the studios come ready made. The work is done in-house, and then they just give the stuff here, print that. It's more quality control.
Hmm.
But I don't get that sense of fun to it. There's something about different artistic styles. If you ask me the most fun Scooby-Doo thing I've seen, I think it was this Squibby Productions or Squidoo Productions, something like that. They did the Scooby-Doo and the Treasure Island map or something. And it was
Hmm.
Scooby-Doo as a puppet. It looked like
Yeah.
Sesame Street. I saw that. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I loved that. They're running in the caves like it's the Muppets. I thought that was so awesome. I wanted a sequel or more.
Yeah.
It was the best thing. And occasionally I'll run across an old comic or coloring book from the 90s, and it'll have some weird abstract Scooby-Doo cover art. I'm like, wow, that's kind of a cool take.
Hmm.
I hope the inside, and you
Absolutely.
open up the inside and it was nothing like that. They reprinted, but the cover looked really cool. And it was, I don't know, that sense of fun. Again, everything's kind of corporate control has saturated all the fun out of these things. And I don't know how you get that back.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
problem is you got a lot of bean holders in these suits who aren't creative.
Hmm.
When
It's
I
very
worked,
true.
when I worked for the Franklin Mint, they got a guy named Ron. I can't remember his last name. They hired him from Disney. They outright stole him from Disney and paid him a ton of money to come to my area, and he worked there. And you got all the cool stuff because they just let him go with a free reign, and it was, and that was the kind of the thing where you could go off and create something very cool without these stringent control things going on. Whether or not
Yeah.
people can see it and move. I understand if you're working in the studio like animation, you got to be there every day. I've been working so long by remote or just working from 2 feet from my bed. I could be a male porn star or an artist, right? I mean, it's like that's the thrill of being it. I can go work my own hours. You tell me the deadline when you need it. Enough said, right? Let me do it when I can. If I know I can do it quick, I can do it. Whatever, I can get it done. I prefer that. There's something very zen like being able to go out and walk around the block in the day and then come back and draw to stay fresh and all that. And I can still crank out the work. I can't do the work like I used to, like 4 Scooby projects at once. I just said yes to everything in 2000. And then they
Mhm.
said the Alien Invaders coloring book came up. The person there didn't want to handle it. They have too much problems, and they were like, I'll take it." It's like I was already doing 3 things at once, and they're like, well, "I don't know, let's have a discussion." And they finally gave it to me, and I got everything done. But it was a blast. I mean, you
Mhm.
kind of have all this awesome drop in your lap. And I
Yeah.
was like, it was just fun. I was like, what's not to like about Scooby-Doo stuff? I said it was fun. I certainly know what it is. you know, but it's, again, I'm not seeing even cartoons like Phineas and Ferb is pretty slick. It's like I'm a corporate chill, like I'm hacking, you know, like, oh, no, it's really a well-written cartoon with the music and everything else. I don't know of any other cartoons that come back that have the same vibe.
Mm,
Did
yeah.
you watch did you either watch the Powerpuff Girls when it came back on TV?
Mm-mm.
Did did you
I saw a little bit of it. It wasn't bad. Like the DuckTales reboot, I was expecting to hate it, and it wasn't bad at all. It was pretty good. And but that's a rarity. Those are the only two things. I mean, everything else that's been rebooted, I'm like, I don't know about that, but
I just wonder if sometimes when they bring it back, it's like Frasier or any of these TV shows they bring back, and it's like, can you go home again? And is at
mm,
a certain point, even with Scooby-Doo, I do appreciate the fact that they change up the art style. They had that Family Guy version a couple years ago, and then they got that Mystery Go-Go series, which is, as far as I know, that was fully produced. 2 years of that, and it's just sitting there on the shelf.
wow.
Because I had talked about that in another interview I had done. If you read Tim Matheson's book, his bio, seven decades in Hollywood, and in there he talked about a TV show he did after The West Wing, and he talks about the background. He made his whole TV series a year and a half, and they just throw it on the shelf because
Hmm.
the tax break they got for it was. He said this could have gone on for a long time, and it was frustrating. All the work that these people did,
Mhm.
it just never got done. I know that I read I find that Scooby movie, the sequel to the 2020 CGI movie, the producer then came out and said, no, no, we're able to go back. We had to do finishing touches, and the studio said, go back and finish it proper, and they did, but it's sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
Where is it? You mean you can't stream it? That just
Hmm.
sounds colossally stupid. When I saw Colette saying she had a lack of work. And I'm like, well, that's because they got rid of the Tom and Jerry yearly DVD and then the Scooby directed DVD Scooby movies.
Yeah.
They're not all great, but they do try stuff. And there's
Hmm.
certain ones that are like, wow, that's strong. I loved Camp Scare. I thought Scooby-Doo meets Kiss. I thought that was great. Um, there's times they really hit it. And I like Mystery Incorporated. And I did that one book for Scholastic that should have been a series. But I remember the producer coming on before season two. He was on Facebook at the time. And he said, we have season two ready to go. We don't know when it's going to air. We have nothing from Cartoon Network yet. We have no idea what's going on. And then they put it on, and it was like some weird thing where it's like once a week, and then they put it on like every day, like at 2:30 in the afternoon, and just burned them off and said the hell with it.
Hmm.
It was like just get rid of it, which is a
Hmm.
shame because that was a decent cartoon. That was episodic. And that was a great thing. It had a different, darker look to the backgrounds. Again, the backgrounds were fantastic on that show.
Yeah.
And they just would send me flat backgrounds, and I have to look at them and try to fit how to manage the light little textures that they would overlay on top in Photoshop to give it that
Hmm.
little look. And you have to mimic that and just try to eyeball it and try to come out and see what the hell they did because they just didn't give you that.
Yeah.
Whereas Disney, you get 5 gigs of awesome model sheets, turns, anything you want will get you to make the product the best. But that's different. Warner Brothers was a little bit more fun. Just look at it. That's a lot of auditions I've done. Shark's Tale, Hungry Hippos. Don't ask. They try to do something with that. Um, you do this stuff, and they would give you one image, and it's like just do it. Whoever could get close on their audition with minimal reference or seeing stuff um, would get the job sometimes. And
Hmm.
it's hard to do that because sometimes you need to see everything to get the
Yeah.
look and the feel of the stuff.
Sure.
I had done that with Phineas and Ferb the first time, and I'm trying to work out that triangle head. And I did a good job. And I posted on my blog. And all of a sudden, the guy on my blog replied. It was Dan Povenmire who created it. He said, this is pretty good for what you had to work with. And I was like, wow, that was very cool. But it was, there's a lot of stuff I've done that I wouldn't pick to choose, but I did it. I would never have uh, gone out and sought out strawberry shortcake. It wound up in my lap, but I said, sure, why not? It had to be all done in Adobe Illustrator. vector. And I thought, can I do this? And I I did it, and it was like I enjoyed it. It was good, but it was a whole other process. I had to put the game, work the game out in my mind what it was going to be.
Sure.
All my work now is when you deal with Disney, this is the game. Can I do the work perfect enough? And to get back, the game of it was you're the big winner, 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 chicken dinner if you got back no changes. That was like an epic. You just got back approved, good to go. That was the best. And I just had that with Mad Cave. They did one small tweak. It was a color change because the logo of Phineas and Ferb had to sit on one of the things on my cover, and the color just kind of muted it. I had to change that one color of my thing, but other than that, it was like good to go. And I was like, great, I hadn't drawn this in 15 years. This is great.
Talking about the Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. book, you mentioned to me that you have some copies that you're going to be selling. Can you
Yes.
tell us about those, where you're going to be selling them, and the sketch?
Well, I'll send you guys a link and all that for it. I'm going to have them up on eBay. I sold them before. I just found them today. I found 2 hardcovers for the library edition. I found like 5 of the paperbacks. They're mint. They're wrapped up in plastic. I found some strawberry shortcake books from 20, but I did a sketch on the inner page. I did an original sketch of Scooby on the inside. And I would do that for people if they requested it, kind of it actually is a finished sketch. So I would do that for people and put them up because you can't get those anymore. If there's Scooby collectors out there, I'm really proud of that work. I was down in Louisiana with Scott Inez, who did the voice of Scooby-Doo. We were working on Hollywood Hound, Rhinestone Owl for the Christmas special, and I had to go back to the hotel night and work on that book. I was doing the inking for the characters, and I had to sit in front of my laptop in the hotel room inking the characters and all that. And then it had to be due in the beginning of February of 2011. I remember this. I don't remember the whole job. I remember the circumstances of creating it. I always remember the panel I did of Courage the Cowardly Dog. The panel I was working on the day my father had to be put in the hospital for the last time. There was a page of Phineas and Ferb where my father collapsed, and I was drawing on. I had to call Disney and say, I can't do this. I got too much going on here. I said, I got the first page done, and I had to give it to somebody else to draw the rest of it. But those are the pages I sold just to get them out of here. Because you look at artwork like photographs.
Yeah.
You guys hold up a coloring book or a comic book and you have a memory of this moment. I have pieces of artwork that I absolutely remember stuff happening in my life that I look at and I go, for better, for worse. I go, oh, I remember this day.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was at the end of the year 2000, I had done so much Scooby-Doo work. I had binders filled. Every day I could flip a page. I had a marker for every day I was productive. I could show what I did for like the whole year, which is kind of cool.
You also have sketch cards that you'll do commissions on?
Yes, I just started that. Yeah, listen, I've been writing to you about this Flair Upper Deck Scooby-Doo trading cards. I honestly, right now as we speak, I don't have an email. I don't have nothing to tell you. They emailed us on April 30th. I go to the pre-sale sites. I don't know what is going on. And I thought, well, maybe Diamond Distribution. Would they deliver? I don't think so. Upper Deck may go through something other What is taking so long? This should have been out in 24. I did my cards May 11th, 24. I got contacted to this November of 23. I turned in the art with everybody else on May 11th, 24. It sat for 9.5 months at Warner Brothers. I don't know if they got one person doing it, the same as Disney right now. You got one person who's overloaded right now. I don't know what's going on, but it sat for 9.5 months. And then it was March 30th, good to go. And then I got permission. Can I show this stuff? April 30th. Can I show my stuff now? And it was like, yes, go ahead. I thought my stuff was all approved. And finally, we got a check. After like a year later doing this, you finally got your check. And then I very proud of those cards. I couldn't wait to get those out there to show people.
Yeah.
And then I'm really proud of these sketch cards. I could tell you my artist proof, but the ones I did as I really wish I would have kept that Snow Ghost one. That somewhere out there, some lucky bastard is gonna have that in the back. And I was like, I wish I would have kept that because I really took pride. And when I showed Nikki the list, I was like, do you know anybody on this list of 78 artists? And I'm like, I sent it to the other Scooby sites. I said, do you know anybody? I don't know. Maybe I'm out of it. But honestly, when I went into this, I thought, man, this was going to be Battle of the Bands. I thought Scott Gerald's, all these dudes I knew, Joe State, everybody would have been anybody I knew. Oh man, I got to go up. You know, these dudes are bringing it. It's a sketch card. I was going to go out to outdo everybody. And that was my thing. I even pitched it Upper Deck. I said, listen, I know Scott Inez. I can call him right now. If you did a card for him, the autograph is a voice card for we've done more voice actors. I can get him right now. You want to print some more cards just to throw him in? He'll sign them. Believe me, Scott's a great patriot for Scooby. Which is why, you know, when he didn't get the part when Matthew Lillard got the thing, Scott Matthew Lillard liked it, but he treated it as a job. Scott would have taken it till he would have been out promoting it. Scooby, he did it every day on his radio show. And that's the guy you need out the army of the front to promote Scooby-Doo and get it out to the masses, which is what I loved about him doing it. Sometimes you get the right guy and the other intangibles that someone brings at a project. My enthusiasm for stuff. If I got enthusiasm to talk to you about something, I think that shines through.
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
I hope it's not boring tonight. I hope.
No, not at all. No.
I hate to sound like I'm commiserating or bitching and moaning because the industry, when you work in the industry, you see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, why am I'm here? I enjoy the work. I can't complain. Yeah. If I had to do a change of life, what I'm trying to do now with my sketch cards, because I said, well, okay, Upper Deck, I don't know when they're coming out. So I created my own. I got, it's a bad flash, but I got this. You flip it over in a top loader. It's got my card on the back. And the second card is a certificate of authenticity. And you'll get that in one nice little package. This is a blank one, but I did like 10 Scooby-Doo like heads on. I did quick, but then I'm going to do caliber like I did for my Upper Deck cards. I got 10 Phineas and Ferb cards already drawn pen and ink. And I did like scenes like Doof versus Agent P and all this kind of cool stuff. And I can draw whatever I want. I can draw Yogi Bear, Adam Ant, and put stuff on cards and then put them out there, you know, at a price point, you know, which is cheap if we're in the Trump session. And I got to way more broke. I said, you know, this would be great. It's original art. It's cheap to get out there. And I think people will kind of enjoy that as a smaller thing to enjoy. It's original art. You have a piece and it's validated. You're buying it from me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will admit, because I'm not really, I do have some cards, obviously, but I would not consider myself a collector of trading cards. So I honestly had to look this up myself. For anyone watching that honestly doesn't know this, I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't know what these were, but could you please explain to us what are sketch cards? And also, how are those different from the artist proof cards that you also have coming up?
Okay. What I just showed you, this is what's called a personal sketch card. And I just put it original sketch card. This is a 1 of 1 because originally I had a 1/1, and even my mother didn't get that. I had to put 1 of 1. This is a 1 of a kind original you will have in your hand from me with care and love, signed on the front. And then you have a certificate of authenticity just to validate it. I'm like Mr. QVC, baby. And when initially I got contact, I knew what sketch cards were. And I saw how much they would go for when like Adam Hughes would draw a ton of sketch cards for stuff, or some of these artists. When Upper Deck produces, they get a bunch of artists. They give you a set amount of cards. You cannot screw them up. So it's high stress. You cannot screw them up. And you draw like 15 sketch cards. Once these are approved, they would then be sent to the manufacturer and they'd be inserted in random packs. Whoever would get them gets a card. I think you're like 2 per box you would get of a sketch card. And then you get 2 artist proof. Now, all that stuff has to be approved by Warner Brothers. And I did all mine straight out in front, got all this stuff approved. The artist proof, I can do whatever I want with it. I could set up a charity and donate money to the SPCA or any dogs or charity group, or do whatever. I could donate it to anybody, cancer group, whatever. And you could give them away. You could burn them, whatever you want to do with those cards. Once they're approved, they're good to go. You were allowed to, and someone is doing this who's in Brazil. They were one of the artists. They have their cards. They're up on eBay, and they're for like $100. They're saying, well, you can, so you tell them if you pay the money, you suggest what they can draw. But even still, that card has to be sent to Upper Deck, who then sends it to Warner Brothers, because you can't have a topless Daphne with a, anything Scooby and Shaggy smoking a joint or something. That's an official card. And I tell you this with the rules. I could send you the rules for the contract of what you can't draw. And it sounds typical because you're not going to get paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
If they reject a card, you don't get paid for it. So why would you do that? It was pretty easy to do. And I said, I wanted to do something cool. I honestly thought, man, everybody I knew was going to be involved in this, and it was nothing like that. I said, I saw the quality. I said, I will flat out tell you, I think I have the best looking cards out of anybody. That's my personal opinion.
Of the ones that I've seen, I'd have to agree with you for sure.
I haven't seen anybody else with their. I've seen the other guy on who's on eBay. I saw his samples. He put up what he did, and they were just one character, and they were like, I don't know, I didn't like him at all. The magic marker work was I really took care to do the rim lighting, and the high stress I did putting the snow with this sponge and all that stuff was kind of insane, because you couldn't screw it up, and you're so used to working digital. You can click the mighty undo button and go back a step, or you create layers to turn. I can make a scene night. I can make it day. I can make it, you got to think all that stuff out before you commit. I had test sheets of paper. I thought it was insane, but I thought honestly, oh God, I'm going up against like Gerald's and, Scott Shaw, any of these, I thought any of these people we would have mentioned, who even the guys who do comics, and I'm reading the list and I'm like, I don't know who they are. Upper Deck was fantastic. Matt Dumford, friendly as hell. He gave me extra time if I needed it, because I started to work on these cards and I got a headache because my eyes, I needed to get a new prescription for my glasses. And I got bifocals put on. This is when you're working with a trading card. I'm probably doing more self-harm working on sketch cards with bifocal vision. But they were a lot of fun. It was freeing in order just to have some fun and kick back and do them. But again, it's an original piece of art. It's small. Maybe you get somebody who cares about it. Most people, when they go to a convention, they'll buy $10, $15 for a print.
Yeah.
That's good enough for the wall.
Absolutely.
Listen, we can sit here and like our entertainment the way we do, and we have certain things we like and how they're created. And we respect. I grew up at a time when you could see the end of the credits on a TV show. You got to know the names of the people who worked on them. You don't even get that now. It cuts to a small baby picture, and you don't see the names of these people who worked on the thing, who know Iwa Takamoto is, or any of these great layout artists who worked for Hanna-Barbera. We don't get the list of credits to see who really worked on stuff anymore. And anymore, Steven Silver called it. He said, people don't care how it's created. They just want to be entertained for this moment, this second. I'm spending with you. We're in a short attention span. Nobody's sitting through Gone with the Wind 3.5 hours. I will, because I love it. But, I love old movies. I can sit through black and white. I'm not complaining. Nobody sat through E.T. in 1982 going, I can't wait till CGI is invented. Nobody did that. We enjoyed it. And we're at a time people don't care. There's an AI animated movie that's up. It's like an hour family movie. I think 90 minutes or 87 minutes long. And yeah, you look at it as a professional and you go, okay, this is kind of crap. But a 5-year-old doesn't know that. I used to spend so much time and energy on my coloring book stuff that the girl I worked with at Golden Book, she goes, you're spending all this time. Would you just get it done? Get it? I need FedEx to pick this thing up this afternoon. I said, no problem. All right, don't worry about it. She said, you're doing all this work. You know, some kid is just going to color Scooby purple. And I was like, well, yeah, okay, whatever. But it's for the art of it. I don't, that's my craft.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, obviously there is some merit to what she said, but at the same time, I would argue that I was one of those kids who all of that stuff inspired me to grow up and do it myself. The backgrounds in classic Scooby, the coloring books, the comic books, all of those things inspired me to want to get into art. So while maybe a lot of the kids were not going to be paying attention to all of the extra detail that you were putting into it, I guarantee you there were plenty of kids like me who we were watching for the end credits on a show. I still do it. I hate it when, like you say, it's like this big. I'm like, I can't read that. Or they go so fast now that you can't possibly, Mm. And so I definitely think that it's always worth putting in that extra bit of effort because you clearly have a passion for what you do. And no one will ever convince me that that does not shine through in all of somebody's work. If that person loves what they're doing and they have a passion for what they're doing, even if you're drawing not your favorite character, but you have a passion for the drawing itself and you want to put the care and the time into it, there are people who appreciate that. I was in a bookstore. We have just a small one, and I'm in a very small town. We have one little independent bookstore. And I was going through the kids section a few weeks ago, and I just had the thought, and this is not to put down any artists today. That's not my point. But looking at all of the books that they had on display, I thought to myself, if I was 4 or 5 years old now, looking at this lineup of books, there is nothing in me that would be like, wow, that's amazing, and I want to do that. The majority of cartoons that they're making today, little me, I would not have watched those and thought, wow, I need to know more about this. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I completely understand that, but I do feel like we have lost something, and I would have had zero interest in going into art if what is being the majority of what is out there today was what there was when I was a kid. I grew up on classic Nancy Drew hardcover books with those amazing paintings. They've redesigned those covers for modern day, and it's not that they're not nice. They're beautiful. They're so generic and plain. And I don't know. I would have no interest in going into that. So I appreciate that you took the approach and you continue to take the approach that you do. It's clear in your sketch cards that you were having fun doing that. It shows in them because they're beautiful. You mentioned in particular that snowy effect that you got, which was the first thing that I noticed when I saw them on your blog. And I was like, that right there, that's what's cool. I'm curious, because you have worked in both, obviously, traditional and in digital now for a long time, doing it in the traditional manner, in spite of all of the extra anxiety that it caused, did you at all feel like this, if we can call it an old school approach to doing the cards? Did it give you a greater sense of satisfaction than if you just were working on the computer in, say, Photoshop, where you could, like with the click of a button, change the colors, do the snow effect, and in 5 minutes you're done?
Yes. I'll tell you why. I didn't even put this on my blog when I wrote about it. I had started those cards late. I kept putting it off another week and then another week after that. There was an anxiety. I had 15 cards. I couldn't screw them up. If you screwed up the card, you still had to mail it back because it was a live card out in the wild. You couldn't have that. You had to mail it back, even if you screwed it up. If you didn't finish them on time, you had to mail them back. It couldn't be out there, And there was such anxiety because I was so used to doing strawberry shortcake. There was pencil drawings. Everything else was digital. When I did Handy Manny, for Disney. That was pure digital in Adobe Illustrator, all vector graphic stuff. But I was doing Ed, Edd and Eddy at the time when I did comic books. I do it by hand because I had the original artwork to sell. Whether or not you zoom in real close and you go, well, the line breaks. No, it's inked by hand. You're looking at it 400% on a screen. Of course, it's not going to look a little off, because you're not looking at the proper eye, spatial considerations in front of you. I would have lost tens of thousands of dollars on my original art had I not drawn by hand. Guys who go pure digital, I appreciate they do that to get the work done, or they just draw digital. What do you do when the power goes out? I had a writer, his laptop broke. And I asked, he said, I can't write. I said, dude, pick up a legal pad and a goddamn pencil. What do you mean you can't write? Well, I'm used to writing in the computer. I said, are you kidding me? You can't write just take a pencil. It's I was going to post a picture of courage on my LinkedIn today. And if you guys are if you're on LinkedIn, hit me up or something to connect or something, I always post there, but I was going to post a picture of courage that I did today with a purple coal erase pencil on just cheap, crappy copy paper. And I just said, here, up here you go. No AI involved. I just saw a story about the drain of AI on the power grid with data centers right now. It was on NPR and locally in Jersey. They're having problems. And I'm like, look, no stress on the power grid with me. I prefer to have something, even if it's not good, I have that. I try to get it as good as I can right now, but I can let it go. But some things I can't let go. I want it to be good. There's a certain pride, as a skill. And when you get upset with somebody who doesn't think this is a real job, oh, you draw cartoons, is that a real gig? Yeah, that's my skill. That's my art. You don't complain when your plumber tells you the bill, you pay the bill. When you look at an art and you don't want to pay $250 for a logo for your business, that's too much money. It's like, what are you talking about? You want to put it on t-shirts and hats and then you want me to give up my artistic right to it.
Yeah.
For the people don't understand that. And the more we get pulled away from that, I can see young people when we sit there and they draw, and I have kids sometimes, I would do drawing seminars and stuff. We do like an animation, like a little bird flying, and you have to recopy the same 3 pictures of a bird flying. And it's just over and over again to create a strip because you're doing the kids get bored by saying, is this the job? I said, yeah, welcome to animation. And they're like, this sucks. This is too long. This is boring. Can we draw something? So I have my magical stuff I can draw with a magic marker straight on the board, just Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson, just boom, it just lands on the page. They think, oh no, now I got to sketch this stuff out. It's my tricks to impress women. I could just draw on a big 18 by 24 art pad, and it's just drawing. You lay everything down, and it's just magic. No, baby, I'm in the zone. That's what 30 years of this stuff does. You're in that zone, and I can nail it sometimes.
Yeah.
I have all my Disney stuff. I'm not selling. I'm going to put up my very first Phineas and Ferb comic, which I have. I'm going to sell that because I need the money. But I have all my Winnie the Pooh and my backgrounds with the trees and all this lush stuff. I'm keeping all that. I got a piece of Mickey Mouse with the gang all in a car. I did everything by hand. I kept it because I look at it and go, wow, I impressed myself.
Yeah.
That's not like self-flatulation or something. And it's like, no, I was like, wow, this is good quality. Because I would light box and have my inks clean because I'd be paranoid. I used to light box my pencils underneath, put a clean sheet of paper on top, and light box it so you just get pure ink. And if I could get through a piece without any white out or pro white, it looks like a print. And that's just
Absolutely.
my mentality. And believe me, it's like some OCD probably with creation because I'm trying to get it. There's a certain amount of pride in the aesthetic. Like I'm trying to prove myself to you or my parents, I can do this job.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been doing it for this long if I couldn't have garnered some kind of success. Yeah, some stuff. Yes, I looked at some of my last Scooby work I did with DC, and I could tell I used some style guide stuff, and I looked like I was going through the motions. I just felt dragged down by the beats of the story.
Mm.
When Shaggy, oddly, I've never drawn Velma lost her glasses. I've never had her lose her glasses in anything I've done. But the beats of the story, Shaggy and Scooby trip on a rock. This, if you read, I was going to write children's book stuff, and you study them, and you read Captain Underpants. And if you read the Captain Underpants books by Dave Pilkey, I think his name is, chapter 5, something happens. The principal hits his head, and he becomes Captain Underpants. Every chapter, this happens. It's almost you can swap out the stories, plug in a new monster, and that is what Scooby-Doo started. That tediousness is what started to be a drain. Not that I didn't like Scooby-Doo, but the tediousness of the stories, because you weren't allowed to take it outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't change stuff. I did inquire, can we, for the comic books, are you going to switch to Mystery Incorporated, that look? No, we toyed with it. We don't want that. We did the What's New Scooby-Doo look in the comics for a little bit, because that was a good show that lasted. And then as soon as that, I remember we went back to the classic 69. That was where it's at. And I always talk about, I always try to insert Scooby or Scrappy Doo in this stuff. And I can show you, I have the original stickers that I got from Golden Books, where I have him on a whole bunch of stickers, and I drew him in with an ice cream cone and had a big X right through him. And I was told Scrappy is crappy. Is it they disavowed him for the longest time. And I would try to sneak him in, and they're like, no way. It was always a cross out. They just didn't want him. It was the classic 69. That's it. And I said, okay, I get that. But you have this whole other universe over here. And it didn't start to break till Inez did the live action movie where Scrappy Doo was in that thing. And he did the voice of Scrappy. And then Scrappy started making the turn slowly, where now he's accepted more if you grew up with him. But for a long time, Warner Brothers didn't want to stick with it. Any of the other Scooby family. It was the core group. This is what we started with. We locked in on, it's almost like Archie Comics. You can't expand it past the universe. And I agree with that. If you're Peter Parker and you're Spider-Man, you got to stay in high school, and you got to stay within, people want these characters to age with them. No, you're supposed to move on to some other thing, Harry Potter, whatever's out there in the world, you move on. This is your little time with this character. You grow up and you move on to another character, and you enjoy that. And then you get tired of that character and you move on, because some things have to stay in a perpetual place where it doesn't change. Charlie Brown is never going to kick that goddamn football. If you remember, I remember waiting for the last strip before he died in the newspapers thinking, what if he kicks a football? That's the whole point. He doesn't.
Yeah.
And with Shaggy and Scooby, they're always going to be running from something, and that's that tediousness that can get. I'd be interested. You said Scooby was hard to draw. If you ask other artists, ask them about the tediousness of the story beats, of the scenario, the tropes that you have to incorporate. This is what we think makes Scooby-Doo. I mean, obviously it worked. Hanna-Barbera ripped off Scooby-Doo how many times? It was the Adventures of Dobie Gillis, just had a dog originally. They took that, and then they made all these other shows, Jabberjaw, Speed Buggy, and all these other shows, because that dynamic works. Why don't they make a Breakfast Club cartoon? There's the 5 archetypes of characters. It works. It's a genius thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like an old man. I'm yelling at the clouds. How dare you?
It's a safe space to do it. It's okay.
Well, since I ended the Scooby thing, I will tell you my Scooby story. Did you ever read it? That Tiki Taboo Trouble? It was a story I wrote and drew. If you had the thick paperback, nobody ever got in 10 years what that story was really about. And with Shaggy and Scooby, they're searching through all their junk, cleaning out stuff for a yard sale, and they find this tiki among all the stuff. I had a throwback to the Snow Ghost and the Tiki God monster thing with the hat, and they're going through the thing. And eventually they find his tiki, and Shaggy keeps getting his ass kicked in the story. And it turns out at the end, this guy comes along and he goes, da, 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 da. The last time I saw that, is that the thing? He said, the last time I saw that was the 3 brothers in Hawaii who had that. That's Vincent Price. That whole story is the tiki from the Brady Bunch. That's what the whole story is. Nobody ever caught it in all that time. I even had the scene where the spider's crawling up Shaggy and he freaks out. Every time he does, I had to do the musical cue. From the, hey, I told it to one person, they're like, the what? The Brady Bunch. How do you not know the Brady Bunch? But it was like one of those things that I drew the Vincent Price character at the end, and I had him come in at the end, and I used the model sheet from 13 Goes to Scooby because he was in the thing, and I just dressed him as he was, and I thought, oh, this is going to be slick. But it became its own thing. If you didn't know that, it still works as a story where Shaggy's, every time you see Shaggy, he's got more bandages on him. Because, but I tied it with a spider and everything. But that was like my tribute. I wound up working in perfectly in 10 pages. And I was like really happy with that because it was so much fun to write and it was so much fun to draw. And then it got printed, and then they picked it to be in that greatest mystery, and then they picked it to be in the Walmart comic, which is 100-page. So I made the final cut out of that down the thing. Oh, this is great. I hope, it was like my one moment, and I had all that stuff, and I was very proud of that. But I have bigger aspirations for Scooby, and I wanted to do that Return of the Creeper thing, and I pitched it, and he said, "This is great, but we can't. The format doesn't do that." Even if you brought back Scooby right now, would they do the overseas format dictated? It has to be 10 pages. These are segments.
Right.
So they can be interchangeable, like Archie comics in a sense, and we can make together. And it's just a different world now. How many of these do we need before you're reading? The only thing I can say about the tropes, if you watch a DVD and you put an old 80s TV show and you watch the A-Team, you watch the first 4 episodes. By the time you get to the 20-minute mark, Hannibal's putting on his leather gloves and the montage is coming up in another 5 minutes. Every beat, you know exactly where you are in the show. And the show was never the same. They just switched out the scenario. It was the same thing. That monotony is creatively draining. Ed, Ed, and Eddie, I never had that. Courage the Cowardly Dog, he would win in the end. Phineas and Ferb, over, but Scooby just had little tropes that you wish you could break, and sometimes you can't because it's in this working area. This is what it is, and you accept it.
Yeah.
But my benefit in life is working on something that people know. And if you say that, I get a smile. People say they get a smile because it's Scooby-Doo. How could you not smile at that? It's not like I'm drawing Firestorm for DC Comics or the Atom for DC. And you're like, no. I just say I'm working for Marvel. If I just say I'm working for Disney, if I say I'm working for Phineas and Ferb, I even got adults who go, Agent P, or they start doing Doofenshmirtz's voice. Harry the Platypus, what are you doing here? They start doing that. Even adults do that. They know that show.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty when you work on something that has touched Scott Gerald's and all these other dudes. They must talk about that. They know that because when they meet people in the street and you say, this is what you worked on, especially Gerald's because he worked on the animated stuff too. So they know these movies. There's got to be somebody out there who watched, one of the movies he did. And that was a focal point. That was their first movie. That was their first Scooby.
Yeah.
That was weird because when I did the Upper Deck trading cards, Matt Dunford, who put that together, Upper Deck, I posted the World Pokemon Day. I said 26 years ago, I drew Pokemon, and and he was like, "Oh my God, I had these books," but he was a kid. And I was like, "Wow, that's weird." So now here I am working for you all these years later. That was kind of a cool moment. There's moments you have where people appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your blog post on the Upper Deck trading cards was awesome. So much information in there, and I loved how you put the sketches and then put the colored versions of them. I love kind of behind the scenes stuff. So to see how you went through the timeline from start to finish was just great. I loved that.
I hesitated. I didn't want to throw Upper Deck under the bus in a sense. From the time it started, I was going to leave out dates because I said, this is taking forever. And when I post my Phineas and Ferb stuff, I can't argue with Mad Cave. The editor was good. She was pleasant. Everybody was good. I haven't got my check yet. I'm hoping that arrives soon. But the amount of rate, I've always had a great relationship with Disney. What is going on with the approvals? I never had that before with these approvals for Scooby. Take that long. I can't imagine at the comic book level. What is going on? That is the biggest, scariest thing. I was invited to do the 40-page graphic novel for Phineas and Ferb. I looked at the thing and we just couldn't get it off the ground. It was all on Disney. I said, it's taking us long to do a cover. They had to get somebody. I said, I can't financially. When are you going to pay me? It's just sitting there to do 40 pages and it's still being worked on. I can't give you a release date. I know my covers are done. And I know the sales team will be like, oh, this is great. I'm almost looking for a quicker in and out anymore. This long time, I've done stuff back in my early days. You do it, and like a year later, it comes out. It sits in a warehouse, and they have a strategic release date. Fine, but there's a lot of stuff. I'm like Prince after Purple Rain. I'm working on Around the World in a Day now, and you want me to play Purple Rain again? It's like I'm already past that. I'm over here now. People don't understand that. They just milk the thing. Springsteen, went another 18 months, Born in the USA tour. And it's like, okay, I get that. You want to make money. But at a certain point, creatively, I got to move on. But even with Scooby, it hits those points where you get exhausted. But then I had Ed, Ed and Eddie, all this other cool stuff in my life, and it kept it fresh. So you go back to Scooby, it's great. But I got a little breather with Courage, Dexter's Lab, or some other thing. And it's like, oh, this is great. And it's like, that's what makes the creative part of it exciting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for the Upper Deck cards, did you have to use specific colors when you colored in Scooby, or could you use whatever colors you wanted? I mean, obviously brown, but I think you were the one that had sent me a color chart like years ago that you had to use for when you colored Scooby for like books and
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I have a CMYK. I have a palette for Scooby and all the Cartoon Network stuff. I have a palette that sits in Photoshop, and you just click Scooby Brown, and it was maddening 15 years ago. And even now, I went along and I thought maybe my Scooby's a little too dark, and I had to find these Art Loft markers to get Scooby Brown. And I'm sitting because now they have everything locked up behind plexiglass, and this poor girl sitting there, and I'm trying to explain to her, you don't want to know what this is for. She's on Teeny Bopper. She's opening up the doors, and I'm mixing and matching on the little pieces of extra paper they have, and I'm trying to blend the markers for Scooby. Okay, this is a base color, and there's my shade for Scooby. Is that brown to match it? And I'm like, that has always been the Scooby Brown because you have the exact color in Photoshop that they want. You don't have to sit there and guess. You have to eyeball everything. I found the right colors for Daphne. I could have Velma. I had them set. Shaggy. I had them right, and I had the right and I write all this stuff down on index cards. I mean, this is my own. I know I'm making fans for you girls. I'm trying to please you both. I am what this is what I wrote about. What Scooby fan just wants some half-ass quick sketch of that? They want a scene. They want Scooby and the Creeper. If I can make that work, they want something cool. And I said, this is the kind of thing I would do scenarios because what would I want as a fan? That's why Scooby's on every card. I got one guy who emailed me who said, where's Velma and Freddy? And I said, look, they're not that popular. When I get asked to draw, even at a convention, it's mostly Daphne for the sex appeal, and it's Shaggy and Scooby, which is why they always look at the 13 Ghosts. There's no Fred or Velma. Even in the new show, they got rid of Fred and Velma. I think it was just Shaggy in the new show that hasn't come out, but they always get rid of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I understand. I was like, these are the characters I like, but I got to fit it on a trading card. Who doesn't want Scooby? Even if it's just Scooby and the monster, I'm giving you something, even if it's representative of an episode. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe the timeline that Oliver Stone, JFK, the timelines were a little bit wonky and when it happens. And it's like, okay, I just gave you what I think a Scooby fan should want. If they want it as a collectible, you have to have Scooby on every card. Nobody wants just a Freddy card. or, you know, I'm sure there's Velma fans, sure, but I'm crapping on them, but I'm not. But nobody really wants that. They want the main card, the hero of the story. If you do a Superman set, nobody wants the Perry White card or even a Lois Lane card. They want to have Superman on there in some cool pose if they wind up with it. And I was just thinking about that. Again, I thought I'd be going up against, you know, I was trying to outdo other people. And that was just the artist thing in me going, I'm against all these dudes who've been drawing them for years, man. If Iwa Takamoto was still alive, you know, he'd be invited. I was surprised when Nikki told me, like, she asked, I think Scott Gerald, and he was like, no, he didn't know anything about it.
No.
I don't even know how they picked me. I don't know how they found me on the internet. I know all these other artists. Maybe if you get a diverse style, an Asian artist who draws very unique, that's cool. Okay, that's different. I'm giving you, and I told Matt, he said, well, you can do whatever you want. I was going to do something in black and white to create an old school film look. And I just said, I should do these guys. I know what a Scooby fan would want. If I'm a Scooby fan, I know what these people want. Sometimes you just got to give them Christmas, and you got to give them their meat and potatoes. You could throw some broccoli on the plate because I know you like it, but I'm just giving you, I got to give you what you need as a collectible because this is what you want. I can't throw something unique out there. It is what it is. But the uniqueness of not screwing up, and Nikki, if you go to my blog and you put in, I think it's like my art materials or art tools. I have a whole long blog post about all the paper and my pens. And so I still use the same stuff for 10 years. Once I settle it in like an actor, I found out these tools work the best. I love this paper. This is what I just stuck with that stuff. And that's what I still use to today. But again, I'd rather draw by hand only because I can sell it later.
Sure.
That's a huge market. I don't know many people care. There's still a huge original art market. If you draw digitally, you lose that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have blank DC paper, DC Comics paper. I could just take and draw stuff. Do a commission on that. You want on DC paper? You want Scooby-Doo? I can do that. Right? And that was it.
Absolutely.
All I ask is companies pay me my fair rate. That's it. And a lot of stuff right now, everybody's cutting their budgets. Even the Disney work. Phineas and Ferb, I was living high on the hog in 2011. Apparently, I didn't know I had it that good, but they paid great. Now, not so much. It's gutted. But, you know, even DC Comics, when they come in, gutted. And then you go to DC and they're like, there was an artist who just was online who ripped and shredded Marvel in a cursed tirade. But Marvel is the lowest company in terms of paying artists. It's in the gutter. And the girl who created the Ironheart, I think she only got $5,000 for that character. Well, they're making a movie. You don't get, I know that. If I create a Scooby-Doo villain and they want to use it, I don't own it. I'm cool with that. I know the deal. That's why I've held off on some stuff. I kept it just for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have been cool to put this design for a mummy or something in a Scooby movie or excuse me, one of the comics or books I did. And I'm like, you know, you sign over all the rights you had to that.
Yeah.
And I don't get thing if they reprint it. I never would have thought 27 years later they would have reprinted my Star Wars card. I'm glad they did. I don't know who at Disney saw that and picked me, but man, that was cool. They did a beautiful back on it. I had to buy my own refractional card. I spent $90 for a number 30 of 75 for my own card. And they don't even tell you it exists. I don't even have a base card. You think they would send you a couple cards or comp copy?
Yeah, for sure.
That you worked on. They don't even tell you. People go, oh, you know, it's back in print. That'd be cool. At least I can get some push. So if I see some, oh, you go to Dollar Tree, my Mickey Mouse stuff is still there.
Was there a time where you got comped, like whatever it was that came out? Like
for sure.
Book? Yeah.
Capstone would give you books. You get an artist discount. You could call them, order them. They ship them to you, hardcover, pick whatever you want. You get like 50% off. and you would buy them for shows or whatever. A lot of times I would go buy my own stuff at the dollar store because I knew the markets there, but they would give you comps of stuff. DC Comics used to give you a stack of maybe 10, 15 books. When the trade paperback for Greatest Mysteries for Scooby's Mysteries came out again, I got 2 copies of it. And they mailed it in a nice box, beautiful. But usually it's 5 copies of the comic. I did, and the I think my last backup story was Scooby 127, and I had that comic convention. They went to a comic convention. Okay. Let me explain the joys of comics, and you wonder why the fun is sucked out of it. The lawyers for DC got into it. I'm making up stuff on the fly. The opening panel, I had these little movie posters in the back, and I'm just writing stuff out. And I remember Harvey Richards emailed me, "You got to change the name of that." I said, "What's wrong with the title? I just picked that out of my ass." I said, "No, apparently they Googled it. That's like a bondage movie." And I'm like,
Oh
"What?"
my gosh.
And I had to take that out. And we had this Shaggy and Scooby come up to this robot, and it's Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still. And I had to change him enough. I know how much to change him, but it's a parody. Allow it, right? You say we're going to change him. So instead of being silver, you had to color in little areas on his costume, on his suit. Okay, are they going to get that? But we had in the script, Klaatu Barada Niktu. This is what he says. This is, if you're a science fiction fan, you know that they had to change the 3 words. They were running scared of the lawyers from being sued. I said, why are we even doing this? I remember telling Warner Brothers, I remember complaining, like I'm with you 2 ladies here. I'm complaining. I would do this to Kevin at Warner Brothers and go, dude, when the porn parody of Scooby-Doo gets more right, what can we do? What can I do with this? When DC Comics won't allow you to do stuff because they're running scared of stuff. We're doing a parody. I'm making up certain things. You have to know what we're parodying. It's not going to work as a comic convention. We had a guy who was supposed to be like a Stan Lee ripoff. And it's like, what are we doing? I can't spoof it enough where people are going to get what's going on.
Sure, sure.
That's just maddening to a large degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe it. And the one thing they did slip by, it was an Evil Dead poster in the back. The one thing. And it was in the front. And I said, they didn't pick up on that. And I was like, I just threw it in the background. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, that was small. And you named something. I had Forbidden Planet. I think I said, of course, we're doing it's Forbidden Planet. It's a convention. Who doesn't know the robot? I can't think of his name right now. But they had the girl in his arms in the poster. And I was like, I was trying to just name it something else. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we can't do that. We're going to get sued. It's like, well, it's a moot point because nobody cares at a certain point. Are they really going to sue DC Comics over? I don't know. I remember Todd McFarlane got sued by a hockey player because he hadn't spawned. I think he had a real life hockey guy who sued it because he had the same name or something. I was like, whatever.
Wow.
It's insane. I don't know where this stuff kind of goes. That sucks the fun out of it. Why are we doing this story then?
Sure.
Because it's too hard to mimic a convention and the thrill of a convention. You have characters dressed up like Lord of the Rings. Okay, I can spoof that. Pokemon, I guess we can play with that design wise. But otherwise it's a drain. If you're trying to do a actual represent, I've seen it done better elsewhere. And they don't care, the other comics, but certain, I think it's mainstream. You know, everybody's so lawyered up anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It sucks the fun out of it. But it's not all bad. It's not all bad. It could be worse, but that was one of them.
Yeah, that's always the place that I go to. Whatever it is, it could always be worse, and then all of a sudden things aren't as bad for a little while.
It's amazing with the comic books. They've had a lot of good stuff in there, and they did a great job with it for all those years. And then they rebooted from another #1, and then they got another 150 some issues out of it. And I just wonder if kids are reading comic books anymore. Even if we go with, I see ads for artists, a vertical comic. It's just one long vertical strip and you just stroll through it. And it's one chapter of a thing and you have to format it to this. Could I do that? Probably, but I wouldn't format it. I would do it as a normal comic and then convert it, which is a hell of a lot of work.
Sure.
I don't know where kids are with stuff. My young neighbor next door, she wants to be an influencer on YouTube. It's like, really? Out of all the stuff in the world, this is what you want to be? It's like there's a glut. It's like architects in the 70s. I wanted to be an architect originally with the comic books. I said, well, maybe I had strength in that, but it was already a glut in that market. And comic books is a great market, but there's no money in it. You're trying to explain the hours you put in, the time you give up in your life, and they want quick turnarounds. And it's like, well, that's why some of them look like crap, where they
Yeah.
don't have backgrounds. They just have the characters in there. And I understand that thinking. I've been guilty of it myself. Sometimes story wise, the character is important. I shouldn't be off looking at the corner of the panel and have my eye drawn to this corner of the panel. I should be focused on a character who's yelling something. He's in panic mode. That's what your storytelling is about.
Sure.
But in general, you know, it's a different world.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm like the old man in the room. I like my stuff a certain way. I think this stuff was better. Oh, you see this movie? Like that movie, The Island. Yeah, I saw that back in like 77 when it was called like Logan's Run. I thought that was better then, But it's like, by the way, go buy the books. And it's the same thing. I wish they would do, why isn't nobody doing a young or not a young, a Scooby-Doo young adult novel? Take those comics or just take the characters and do a young. I would do that. I said that. I'd do my Return of the Creeper story. I could do that in a trilogy of novels. I would do a cover. I did do a cover, like a test piece. And then I could write it as a novel, the young adult. There's a market there for that. Why are they not doing anything with Scooby-Doo?
Yeah. We ask that on like a near weekly basis here. We don't understand either.
And the stuff that is made, we don't know when it's coming out.
Exactly. Exactly. Um,
That's
I do
frustrating.
think,
I got to tell you, I was so willing to be like, oh, this is it, Nikki. This is the timing. It's coming out. It's coming out. And I told the other side, I kept pushing off an interview. And I got this exciting news breaking. And then it's not happening. And it's like, ugh,
Yeah.
and finally you just got to move on. And it's like, well, it'll come out at some point.
mhm.
If it's not sitting there, I'd love to know the reason for it, but that's just weird.
Yeah.
It's not like they're not printed in this country. They are printed. It's not like they're printed in China and tariffs and all this stuff, which you have to worry
Mhm.
about with comics because
Yeah.
all the paper comes from China.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this stuff is concerning with DC Comics. They got to be looking at the digital versus physical print copy.
Mhm. Mhm.
The price of a hardcover book right now is up. Even a kid's
Yeah.
books. The book sales at the local library when you see kids stuff is up.
Mhm.
Normally, when I would see a kid, I would do a sketch or something, but I would keep comics back when they were $1. If you buy them wholesale from the dealer, the comic store guy, or you order them online, then I would sell them at a discount when I do an appearance or something like that. But I would always try, do something for the kids, for free or whatever. But adults, you apparently have a parent to tip or something, but you do sell something. Everybody wants free stuff at the conventions too,
Yeah.
because there's so much free stuff available. And I'd have a free piece that I would reprint my stuff. Thanks for showing up, but they give you sketch cards. Here, do a sketch. It's like, all right, well, I got to eat here. I got a Verizon bill.
Yeah.
It's depressing this way. But that's why I came up with my own sketch card. I can do what I want and then like put it out there. And I could do whatever people want on them too when I do a commission, but I'll have pre-drawn ones too they can pick from, But
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool venue to initiate and just to do original hand-done content. There's no AI involved. There's a lot of thought before I commit to a card. So there's care involved. I hope this was interesting for everybody, whoever's watching this, especially you two. You've been putting up with me for like 2 hours, I
Oh,
think.
this
So
has been great.
Oh, we'd love it. Yeah.
We
No, we'd love it.
we're those people that watch the credits because we want to know who worked on stuff. And the whole reason that we do these interviews is because no one knows who you guys are, and we want people to know who you are. We want them to know what you worked on, Scooby or other stuff. And we want to be able to give you a platform to, tell us your story because it's important to us. So
Mhm. Yeah,
well, somebody
absolutely.
out there has to make the sausage, and yeah, you mightn't see somebody go, "Oh, this is interesting. This is a cool," whether or not it's a viable. I don't know where I'm going to be another year from now. I honestly don't. I mean, it's kind of scary in that respect. Like I said, this is the first time I didn't have a studio give my name out to somebody, and they contacted me.
Mhm.
And it's like one of those weird things, and it's like your avenues for certain stuff. Um, should I have done Alfie like 10 years ago on my own? Probably. I probably would have been smart to do that, but I wasn't thinking that because sometimes you're in other areas or you get something exciting and you're like, okay, and time passes by quick.
Yeah.
And Scooby is like, one of those perpetual things that stays there forever. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. Upper Deck, and I thought, okay, this is cool. And it's like, I don't know what's going on with the industry as a whole. If you met some young art student, I'm not going to say don't get into it. This is like if you ask a young John Bon Jovi, would you get into it now or not? Because it's a different world.
Yeah.
Could you have made it? Oh, I would have gone on YouTube and I would have gone on Patreon. I would have gone on whatever. And you're fighting for nickels and dimes from a small audience. It's very fickle. They only want to be. They don't care about process. You girls are you're in the process. You can appreciate if I give you a cell and the amount of work that goes into it in the process. If people aren't exposed to that and the amount of work that goes into it, there's nothing to appreciate. They just want to be entertained for the 5 minutes I'm spending with you, which is why I try to be entertaining. But a lot of the bitterness starts to come through because there's a lot of the process. If they don't respect the old methods, when I taught at a Delaware College of Art and Design, which is now closed, funny. I taught animate kids come in. We want to start drawing digitally. Where's my tablet? It's like, no. We're going to draw on this thing called paper. And we have this thing called pencils. Because you can't do anything yet. You need to draw physically by hand first. They get the coordination and everything. Digital is a slightly different learning process, but is there. But you got to learn the physical nature of doing stuff first. And you have to learn to appreciate that. There is something very calming, as much as my blood pressure goes up talking about this stuff. When you're in the zone and you're drawing at 2 a.m. and you're inking, there's something very zen about that. And that's great for art, which is why they're trying to bring back art classes and stuff for kids, get people into art.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is geared now. All these wonderful toys you got in your back and posters. There's a whole article on BBC, but they're making these toys for us.
Yeah.
They're making this stuff for your age group right now, not because of the disposable cash, but because now you got free time. You want to go back and enjoy something from your childhood or something. You want to go back and rebuy it. They're making these toys for you.
Yeah.
Who the hell's going to buy a Batman Adam West toy? I would have, but where am I going to put it? I mean, I got enough stuff here, but where am I going to put that? Where were you back in the 70s? I mean, I have my Mego stuff, but at a certain point, I can't get it, but this is where the marketplace is. So I just try to go back and enjoy the stuff I got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
I would love to know
yes.
you. Let's think of you as an artist and as a collector yourself of things.
Oh.
Thinking of all. Oh, that's a nice one. Look at that.
It's
That's
mint.
a great shape too.
Never opened.
Yeah, that isn't
Wow.
Pristine mint.
Wow.
I got a Smurfs board game, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo board game. Never opened.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Gem
Wow.
mint 10, baby.
Okay, thinking of
Right
any.
next to my Lone Ranger board game from
Oh, look at that.
1966.
Wow.
All complete. I know.
See, how does that even make it without getting played with? It looks like it's never even been opened.
Oh, no, it's been opened. Although I have some extra copies of stuff. This is like one I pride and enjoy. This is still in the shrink rack. Dukes of Hazzard board game, 1982. Still shrink wrapped.
Wow.
I got two of these. I got them opened. But then, of course,
Beautiful.
do you have this one?
Oh, that's nice too.
Scooby-Doo Mystery Mansion game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice.
One of my designers at Golden Books, I still have it because she talked about it. She got me the Scooby-Doo Clue board game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And I had that, and I thought, well, that was awesome. You had two good things that come back together. And I said, yeah, I collect a lot of this stuff because I like it. I got Scoobies all over the place. And like I did sell a lot. Like, you can't have everything, but it does help when you're surrounded by the universe and now you're drawing it at night and all this stuff is around you. I said, what a cool job. And then you swap it out. I used to have stuffed Perry the Platypuses sitting around here when I was drawing Phineas and Ferb.
Yep.
And it's a lot of fun. I mean, it is a good gig. I can't complain about life. You know, I can complain about the deadlines and the money, and it's like everything else everybody else is complaining about. But I'd hate to be in animation right now where I see talented people right now. Like, whoa, how do you not have a job? And he's like on LinkedIn. But there's some people I've known for 20 years, like Colette. And it's like, whoa, and that's a scary thing when they don't, when she's actually looking for stuff. And it's like
Sure.
she's like I put her in the realm of like Andrea Romano. She's like right up there, those two, for the amount of stuff they do for voice cast. I said, this is the hierarchy when it's scary like this. This is the entertainment world. That's why I'm glad I'm kind of not in animation. Is it going to take me joining a bunch of other artists in a studio, creating something we all have equity in, that we have ownership of, and we put it on YouTube?
Yeah.
I do have a place in Upstart of New York, an animation place who's very interested in my stuff and my look and my feel. They're just waiting for the right project, but I have interest that way. But it's beyond that. Like I said, I wish some of these other characters, they have a plethora of cool stuff in their archives of characters. How do you not bring out those old classic Hanna-Barbera characters? Wally Gator. Can't Wally Gator get a sandwich? Come on. I mean, he's a great little character. It's like all these. It's like, why is this not being made? The Jetsons. Is the Jetsons? We're not going to do a realistic comeback. Johnny Quest. Well, they brought back as a comic book. I applaud that. Okay. But it's like some of these things, they should be out there. Why are they going away?
Yeah. Yeah. Nikki and I have talked before about how, like in Dream World, a bunch of artists who have worked on all of these properties would all form a nice little group and buy out the Hanna-Barbera catalog from Warner Brothers and resurrect the whole thing. That's the dream right there.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of had that with Image Comics in the early 90s. They all left Marvel Comics and they went off to form Image. And you got Spawn, Savage, all these comics, they just went off and did their own thing because they had ownership in it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the classic stuff, you would think Warner Brothers, that's what I didn't understand when Disney, the Force Awakens movie comes out, and then Kathleen Kennedy comes out, and she's like, well, these movies are a tough nut to crack. It's not like we have a whole archive of stuff. What are you talking about? You have this entire Star Wars extended universe of material. It's ready made. It's done. How do you not have Mara Jade in a movie? And you have if you like that, we have plenty more. All we got to do is go back to the printer for you. And you can start here as a fan. Oh, this is great. No, you have all this stuff. And it's like, we just disavow this stuff. Well, it doesn't count anymore. Yeah. And it's like, if you were pitching Scooby today, what would you say would you be a starting point for you? If it was an older teen, I'd say you should check out Mystery Incorporated because that's in your vibe. I think you dig that. If you want to go to the classic, 69 show, they might get a younger kid in that because they wouldn't crap on the wonky animation, but appreciate those backgrounds, man.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great. And it's like there's so much like talent there to appreciate the voices and the cartoons when they used to do that. That's a problem. It just got watered down because Hanna-Barbera couldn't keep up. Yeah. And they farmed it out overseas and then to get the work done for Saturday morning. You don't even have Saturday mornings anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
We don't even have Cartoon Network anymore. They were fighting at the time when Secret Saturdays was on and they had Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. the second season. They were talking then about doing away with all cartoons and doing like realistic reality shows with kids because it was cheaper. because you don't want to price. I went up with a guy I was partnered with. We went up and pitched our own shows to animation. We went up to Fuse TV. We went up to all these places in New York. We pitched like 3 different places and specifically had like 5 shows. We pitched them and they went dirt cheap. We priced out animation in Canada for like a minute, what it's going to cost. At the time, it was like 3,000. Barring you give them stuff like the background plates I was doing, and it was like you couldn't get interest. They wanted that cheap South Park, something that was going to be uh, cause a billboard. It was going to be inflammatory in some way. They wanted that appeal to it. He said, "Well, I don't care what can you keep it on the cheap?" I said, "No, you can't. $10,000. Are you kidding me? You can rub 2 sticks together and make, you can't do that. This is animation." And they don't think that, they look at that low quality, it's sharply written, but they didn't even want that. They wanted to dumb down more. They just wanted something to people to talk about tomorrow morning. And it might be gone real quick. And it's like, this is the mentality you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I don't know where cartoons are in terms of everything looking the same. Why is it everything has, when you look at characters, even on like stock art, when you go to and you put in like cartoon character stock art, for places used for magazine, all these characters look like they're out of a DreamWorks movie. Like they have that the eyes and the faces all look like a Pixar kind of DreamWorks movie. The guys and the girls, they all have that same look now. It's like nobody's breaking out of that box to do like Steven Silver or somebody, like a Clerks cartoon where it's hard edges or just something to do something different. Right. All this stuff CGI, it all looks like the same kind of material. So it all blends together. Like you said, there's nothing appealing because there's a sameness to everything. I don't need everything to be drawn like Alex Ross or painted like him. I don't need everything to be drawn. I love Jack Kirby. I love all my classic artists. I love Neil Adams. I don't need everything to be like Neil Adams. When he does his stuff, it's more special. And when you have 5 clones of him who draw like him, it cheapens the product. Yeah. But these other 5 guys, they draw faster. They can get more stuff done. Well, you're diluting the product then. Does it make the original guy who's taking too long, his stuff better? Probably. From a niche market. But again, you have to have an appreciation for that. Yeah. So if you have kids and you feed them the material you grew up on and you push that, if you like Elvis and the kid grows up like an Elvis, that's because of you. You did that. If you have toys and stuff, you expose them and they have cool. My friend I went to high school with, his daughter's into the Go-Go's, the band. She goes to school and they're all talking Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift. And she's like, I saw the Go-Go's like 10 years ago. She's like, what? Because nobody knows who they are. But it's like, you get them into that stuff and they go, oh, that's really cool. So there's a lot of great stuff out there. You have to be exposed to it. And there's so much just coming at you every day creatively. And it's just short little bursts. Yeah. Like a moth in the light. Just look over here. Look at me. Buy my stuff. And it's like, sometimes I just like to stay back. I got a flip phone. I don't have a smartphone. I got a flip. Yep. Still. And I just don't care. You can email me when they get work or whatever. I don't need to be in the matrix, to keep up. I know guys who are talented. They draw their work for the day. They spend an extra hour at night drawing another piece that the next morning they then have to go put up on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 social media sites for the day. The same posts to get it out. Dude, that's exhausting. How are you going to do that? Then they go through their whole day again. Yeah. It's like some artists, their warm-up sketches, the first thing they do is the best stuff they do for the day. That's the most fun. Now the rest of the day, even though they're drawing Spider-Man, it's like, this is the grind. And it can be a grind. Believe me, drawing Scooby-Doo can be a grind when you're just going, because you've been doing it for a while. I'm not complaining. I could be digging ditches, but sometimes you're going through the motions and you're like, oh, it sucks. It doesn't suck that bad, but you wish creatively. But, it's like letting Tarantino direct a James Bond movie. Oh, no. We can't do that. We got to keep it within this box. Can't have
Yeah.
Yoko Ono come in here and screw it up. You gotta keep it within this box. And this is where we're going with it. We got to bring in a conservative director who's going to listen. That would be cool. Break this sucker out and just see what it can do.
Yeah.
What if you brought Scooby-Doo and you gave him into the hands of somebody else who had a love for him? You know, this is why they try everything. This was the mystery go-go. They were the news show. They were trying to, I don't know what's going on. It's just sitting there on a shelf. Whereas it's basically Shaggy and Scooby and Pokemon. Basically, it looks like, I don't know, right? Is it anime? Because anime is hot.
Mhm.
Yep.
Great. But at least they're trying. When they try the Family Guy look, great. I don't have a problem with that. There's another young Scooby show with him and puppies. Is a younger program that got thrown on the shelf. Why would you make this stuff and say, okay, this is for a tax cut?
Yeah.
We get a better tax cut of having you produce this stuff and nobody ever sees it. Wow. That'd be like me printing a book and then putting it on the shelf and me bursting inside going, you would love this. And it would be like, no. And I was like, no, it's just better if it sits on a shelf and nobody sees it. I just don't get that mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the problem when you have non-creative people making all of the creative decisions. Because if you're not a creative person, then all you are looking at is dollar signs. So whether the work gets seen or it doesn't, who cares? As long as you're taking home a paycheck at the end of the day, however you're getting it. Whereas creative people who are actually putting their blood, sweat, and tears into their work, it's not just about the paycheck. Like, yeah, the paycheck's great. We need to pay the bills and stay alive and eat and stuff, but you're doing it because it's a part of you and you love it. So for you to do the work, like, yeah, okay, I got paid, but now no one's going to see it. Creative people, that's hard. So clearly the people that are making these decisions, I don't think they have a creative bone in their body because they do not understand the concept of when you create something with your own two hands that you put a piece of yourself in. It's not just about the paycheck. The paycheck is great. It's a necessity. I get it, but it is not just about that. But to them, that's all it is. They just want their paycheck and they don't care about the rest of it.
That's true. But I like Seth Rogen said on his promotion for this TV show he does that's on Apple TV. He said Hollywood is in a different place right now. Robert Zemeckis, who's directed Back to the Future and fantastic movies, was on Mark Maron's podcast, and he said, I don't know. Right now, this is the weirdest thing. I've been in this business 40 years, and right now you can't get a green light. Nothing I've made would get made today. Nobody wants to take a chance, which is why is Disney going to do a live action Phineas and Ferb at some point? They're remaking. When I saw Lilo and Stitch as a live, really? Do we need this? Didn't we say everything we're going to go through a whole catalog and just redo the stuff we've already done, just redo it live action? Is this where we are? Why not? You can't, I understand you want to do more animation, but you're not getting that genie in the box. They're not going back to 2D animation. They want the character, the toy, all that stuff. It's about marketing, all these other ancillary stuff that goes on in course of it. It's a shame, but it's like there's so many great characters out there, and you're being trying to get new wood. Well, people go, well, hell with it. I'll just create a character that's like this character and try to get momentum with something original because you obviously at the studio can't get it going, and you can't do anything without the hierarchy at the studio saying, okay, we want to do this.
Yeah.
They are just bean counters. They come in and they look at stuff and they go, this is how much it costs. What is our overhead? Let's just gut it. We'll claim the usual suspects, low readership, low this, low that, and they'll gut it. And we'll get out the farm out to foreign artists. There's a lot of talented people in Brazil, but the American dollar composed of what the Americans make for the same piece of art is like nothing. You got $1,000 piece of art, they'll pay 150 for it. That's what they're looking at. And it's like, whoa, I can't do that here. But there's so much talent over there. That's where they're going. Warner Brothers got hell for being the last ones to send out storyboard work to Africa. I mean, I could have got work on that Scooby-Doo and the Guess Who as a story. It just timing wasn't right because I knew Chris Bailey who worked on the show. And he's very cool. And he said, yeah, if you can work on it, Toon Boom and all. I just didn't have this set up and all this stuff at the time. We were in the pandemic, I think, at the time. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And but they were the last studio to work with a remote. Everybody else was like starting to farm out. And then Warner Brothers gets problems with the animation union because they're going overseas to get board work done. And it's like, okay, that's what they should have fought for. They should have keep it here in the country and like no AI with the studios. Just keep it for what it is, which I'm surprised with book publishers that they're going to start putting in no AI in your contract and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know where any of this goes. I'm interested in other artists, and I really don't mix and match like I used to with artists. I know the local guys around here who've worked in animation and stuff like that in other areas, but even at shows, it's a different world anymore. And you're just fighting for your little niche. The print runs are nothing. If you're telling me Scooby-Doo got stopped, DC Comics, they put a hold on it.
Yeah.
What are the numbers? I will tell you flat out, that was the #1 printed comic for DC. No lie. That was it. They didn't want to admit that. I had two major editors who told me that. One of them was Michael Siglane, who's now with Disney, running Disney for the Lucasfilm story department. Fantastic dude. One of the best editors I ever had for Scooby. He started there. Because the thing was, if you started with licensed comics, if you could do that, you could do anything. That's how hard licensed comics are to do.
Yeah.
Which is why I appreciate my editor at Mad Cave, what she has to go through dealing with Disney for Phineas and Ferb. It's just a whole corporate, every nut and bolt. And it's like tedious like that. Even though it's fun, there's a lot of, really, is somebody really going to notice that? Oh no, maybe down the line. But my own internal artist thing is like, no, you're right. I can do this better a second time. I can fix that. And I do try to fix that stuff. But I do take personal pride in my stuff, and I like it to go. I can look back at some things and go, wow, this was good. I was good that day. And that's what I should strive for. Whether or not anybody tells it, if I tell my neighbor down the street, oh, this is what you do. Oh, that's nice. You know, they don't give a shit. I mean, most people don't. They go, really? Oh, did you have to be in California? What? No. It's a big world. You can be anywhere and work anywhere. You could be a writer and work anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're hiring stuff. So they are hiring. But again, you know, where any of this stuff goes is, you know, with the conglomerates buying up stuff, I just don't know where it goes. It's a sad shape of affairs. I'm kind of depressed now. You told me Scooby ended as a comic.
Yeah. It was kind of sad. I think Looney Tunes ended as well.
Oh no, I believe it.
Yeah.
They were the same together, which is just kind of sad. But maybe at a certain point they had so much content and cut. You know, I wonder about the editor. Was it Courtney Jordan was the editor on Scooby? I wonder what happened with her. They shift her over, or they give her the old heave ho out the door. You know, because otherwise they usually use to transition you over to something else and keep you in the company if you're doing good. And we're just ending this book, but it's a shame they just don't do comics for kids. But again, cheap paper, cheap price. I love when Archie was at the supermarket right next to the aisle, the little digest. You can't beat that. Why don't they have that? They tried it with Walmart, the 100-page comics when you walk, but it's a collectibles market. Adults are walking in buying them. Because it has the variant super deluxe cover by so-and-so on there.
Yeah.
And they don't have that. I don't know. It'd be different if I was running things there. I would come in with a different mentality and aim it more to kids, especially to reading, because I don't think kids read enough.
Yeah, agreed. For sure.
I don't watch much TV. I read a lot, and I could read like 100 books a year, novels, because I'm just a reader, because I find more originality in other stuff. There's a ton of good stuff out there, but it's like, I'd rather do that than some of the movies and regurgitated TV shows. Definitely. But that's just me. But I don't know. Everybody's different. But you know, it's a weird creative world right now, and it worries me to some part what's going on with this stuff. Even with the biggest and best characters. I'm not saying they got to hire me to draw Scooby or any of this other stuff I do, but it would be nice to keep stuff out there. And I swore they kept doing those DVD, direct-to-video DVDs for brand awareness. Because even for copyright, you keep that movie Scooby character out there. You make another movie, whether or not 3 people watch, who cares? It's in our archive. We finance it. It's brand awareness. You just keep it out there. We have this.
Yep.
And whether or not their feelings on that are, why not we doing, I just, beyond me, the Scooby 50th anniversary, I would have had a product all over with that thing, and barely anybody knew.
Hmm.
I know Scott Inez was pimping it left and right, but it was like, that was a big deal. The 50th anniversary, here we are. And they really had nothing to do beyond that CGI movie. Granted, the pandemic screwed up stuff, it's still 19, but it was a lot of stuff that they could have, they could have prepared for.
A lot of
Mhm.
us hoped that they would do like a Scooby Con for his 50th. And like they could have chosen just a big city to do it in, New York, Philadelphia, whatever. I picked those because they would work for me, but but we were hoping that they would do something like that for Scooby fans to just have like a big party for Scooby, but they didn't.
No, you see, you'd have to go do that. You would have to organize that. That's a great idea, but the reality of that is you just got to go ahead and do it. And if you got the cease and desist letter, tell them to go F off. Basically, you need to go do it because it's the fans who do this stuff and to keep this stuff alive.
Yeah.
Okay, unless you got somebody like Gene Simmons from Kiss. They say he's going to do a Kiss conventions. Right? He's the one who started that stuff. And he said, why not we do that? We're going to organize this and do that. Okay, great. We need somebody who cares about Scooby and say, why not we do a Scooby-Doo convention?
Mm.
Why not? You could have the actors who were in the movie, the voice actors, right? What a great thing. Who wouldn't like that?
Yeah.
Even if it was small in a smaller hotel, you could get that in the Philadelphia Convention Center if you advertised it correctly for
Mm.
kids. And then you bring in the other Cartoon Network characters just to balance it out. That would be huge.
Yeah.
But you got to have somebody who would take that and do it beyond being a generalized comic convention
Right.
and just all this. But again, that's mostly an adult crowd.
Yeah.
Free comic book day they should have a Scooby-Doo comic for free comic book day every year. Get it out there. But kids come into the comic store, grab their free comic and get out. And that's it. You might see them again never the next year to get another free book.
Yeah.
Unless the parents are readers and they say, look, you must read this. Why don't they have Scooby-Doo audio dramas? Like,
Yeah.
get the voice actors to do original audio dramas and let these kids imagine this stuff going on in their heads.
Yeah.
Big Finish overseas does the most tremendous stuff with Doctor Who. They get the actual actors to come in and play the parts, even the bit parts. Why are they not doing that with Star Wars? You could do this with animated cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
You mean you can't do that if Kevin Conroy was still like doing the Batman voice and you get Mark Hamill to come in as a Joker and you just do an audio drama as that stuff? Why don't you have Scooby-Doo as an audio drama? You know what the characters look like. You know how they move. This would be great in your imagination to go to bed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they did all those records in the 70s.
I know I have them.
Like you say, why not? I mean, okay, maybe it would be digital now, but that kind of stuff, it was a thing. That's how, I mean, if it wasn't a thing, we wouldn't still be talking about Scooby 50 years later. All of those things helped his longevity because, like you say, sometimes it's just about keeping your product in people's faces. Like here, it's still here. Don't forget about it. And they're just, yeah, who knows what they're doing now? We don't. I mean, I don't know. Did you see, Nikki, when was it? Was it 2 years ago that WB did that reunion special? Or has it been 3 years ago now?
It was 2 or 3. I don't totally remember when it was, but it was ridiculous.
Warner Brothers did this. Did you see it, Scott? They did
No.
this little reunion special, and we were so excited. We even did a panel talking about what we would love for the reunion special to be, what we would like to see them do, and everything. That thing was 1000% Warner Brothers doing this to all of the Scooby fans.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Literally
they even said at the end of it, like, we could have done, and they listed all these things that like we mentioned on the panel, not saying that they got it from us, but knowing that Scooby fans would want these things. And they were like, but we didn't. And it's like, what was that? Like, that was terrible. You could have done this so much better, and you know you could have, but you didn't because you didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
It depends on if they're juggling other projects at the same time. This is like being a comic book editor and you have 10 books to do. Now they fire two other editors and now we're going to double up on you and you only have a certain amount of time to do a certain thing. And maybe you're like, oh, you just don't have the time to do it. I understand that. But when you got in, if you're going to do something half-ass, the Star Trek 50th anniversary, the Doctor Who 50th anniversary in the UK was amazing with the sheer amount of content they put out. I mean, it was just amazing that they did this stuff over there. And I was following overseas on this stuff. And then Star Trek came and went. I was like, this is Star Trek. And it was barely nothing. You had a Discovery Channel documentary, and that was it. That was it. I was like, what the hell? You should have amped up or put somebody in charge to do something special for it, especially with Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
With the just getting people back together again. I mean, they're bringing back Buffy the Vampire Slayer in another reboot. Yeah. I mean, what the hell? I mean, some stuff I'm not asking for, and I see some of the remakes, and they're pulling them out, and they're oh, I just saw Zach Braff. He's coming back to do another Scrubs. They're rebooting that. He signed up to come back to Scrubs. I'm like, really? Can't we come up with something new? Because sometimes it just taints the original.
Yeah.
Scooby is lucky that even though it's different, it doesn't taint the original. When I watch like Star Trek or Star Wars was just killed with The Last Jedi for me. But Star Trek, when Picard came out, it just killed Next Gen. I'm like, I'm out. I'm tapping out. I got to go back. I just can't do it. This is me, the old man in the room. Where's Shatner? Come in and save the day. Where's Shatner? And it's just like, that's why I got my thing with Shatner. They did this thing with a tribute called Reunification, where they did a CGI young Shatner again. Oh my God. It was 10 minutes with no talk, and it gave me what I wanted.
Yeah, it was amazing.
The best Star Trek in 20 years. Why can't we get that with some of this other stuff? I'm very pro Scooby in that way, that we could take stuff back to the beginning, not be a hybrid on stuff. Maybe make it a little more adult, but go back to that quality of the original show. Spend more time on those scripts. Maybe don't make them as watered down for children or kids, but make it, do that kind of quality. They did that with Mystery Inc., but just to say, the hell with it. Just burn them. I don't even know what that was about. They put them on every day where you don't know. It's like being on in the 70s and they were playing around with Battlestar Galactica in the late 70s and you didn't know what day or night it was going to be on. And as a fan, you just cease to care. We'll get them on the DVD covers. And I did the DVD covers for Mystery Inc. I had done the pre-planning. I did the final art on them, but I did sketches for them. And they were just putting money. Where's the DVD now? Nobody cares. I mean, you own the physical art or the physical disc. You can put it in anytime you want. What if Netflix, who has Scooby-Doo or Warner Brothers, they don't decide to air it? You can't get that. Yeah. That's why you owned it. You had your copy.
Max had all the Scooby, and by the end of the year, everything should be removed from there. So, Boomerang, they took that completely off, the Boomerang app. That was great. It had all the old Hanna-Barbera stuff on it. It was great. And I was really sad to see that go. But yeah, you just don't know if stuff is going to be available streaming. I have a whole rack on the other side of the room that has Scooby DVDs and VHS tapes. And, I'd rather have the physical media.
Mm-hmm.
Well, barring you have to worry about now the Warner Brothers disc rot. I don't know if you saw this with the disc rot. There's a lot of animated stuff I have, the superhero filmation stuff, which all is supposedly on the list.
Yeah.
Made in this factory in Pennsylvania where it's falling apart, sitting on a shelf.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of the seed. I was trying to get word out on that and push people to, you should have ripped it to your DVD. You should have ripped it to your computer. Not only do you buy the disc, you got to rip it to your computer to make a backup.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at a certain point, they keep all this stuff out there. If you can't, I don't know. It's a weird world. They could bring something back, and you just need the right creative people. And I think they just forced a lot of the really good people I knew who were in charge of stuff, who were creative, who were in the industry before, and they come from another sector and come into this and they know what they're doing. They forced them out and they've had enough. And it was like, the hell with it. Well, we don't like this. Okay. But they went back, like I said, with Scooby-Doo. We went to the what's new, Scooby-Doo. Look, we're going back to the 69. We're just going to keep it in 69. We're not going to explain Fred's ascot. That look may come around. Bell bottoms came around. Maybe the Fred's ascot will come around again. Who cares? But we're just going to keep that look and feel. Those characters are just, they're mythical in a sense. They nailed it. That's how good they are. They ripped themselves off by making all the clones. And that's how good they were. I mean, that's when you get all these other like superhero stuff. There is a Marvel fatigue. I just can't stand any of the Marvel stuff anymore because it's like McDonald's. We've created the perfect Omni burger, everything, the perfect mustard, ketchup, lettuce, all this stuff on our burger. It just plays all around the country. Sometimes I want a little spice in my burger, a little jalapenos or something, just to jazz it. They could do that with some of this other stuff, and they just don't want to do it because bottom line, we're going to get fired. Some guy at the studio makes too many bad decisions. But how does Scooby-Doo in the last several years keep getting stuff shelved?
Mm-hmm. Did you see the Velma series or anything from it?
I got to tell you, I just like tapped out. I just don't reinvent the wheel. I'm not, if you want to create I wasn't too happy when they make her Hispanic in the series, or they make her more like Mindy
Middle
Kaling.
Eastern. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, just create another character. Have Velma as she was, and just create another character that she teams up with or something.
Yeah.
Don't take I'm very lenient, or I'm very open to Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes, but I'll take it with Sherry Thomas's novels where Holmes and Watson are women. It's like a Jane Austen book. The daughter of Sherlock Holmes, I love all that stuff. They had a Holmes and Watson, which are two dudes in the hood. There were two black guys in the hood. There were Holmes and one was a bouncer. It was like fantastic. I love all that. I am very open with it. But there's certain things, just give me that, create a new character. I don't need a whole spider universe. Miles Morales is a good character. He's another Spider-Man, but it's like, it's over there another, oh no, now we got to bring them together in one universe. And it's like, you got all these other characters. What do we need a whole spider universe for? And then they water down Peter Parker. This is when the older fans like me complain, because it's like, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Just give me that and do it well. But oh no, we got to do this. And I don't know what to think. I just tap out. So I figure I save a lot of money and I go buy the old stuff that I like and enjoy the stuff I like. And I'm not going to buy your new stuff. That's the only way people have, is to you support stuff with your dollars. Mm-hmm. If you don't go see the movie, if you don't support it, they will stop making it. Maybe somebody will get it in their head to change something, but maybe they won't. Yeah. I think they're all running scared because entertainment is changing so fast. And they just got this hedge fund thing. It was a company who has an AI app, and they can create this stuff. And they're forcing, and basically they want to get rid of every animation artist with this stuff. They just got an influx of $32 million, a $200 million CO company running this thing. That's their goal, to create this thing. You could put it in your own stuff to create your own stuff. And they just got $32 million. It was a story. They were all raving about it on LinkedIn with these guys who are in the industry. What is going on? This is their thing. You got to start your own studios, do your own stuff where you have equity in the house.
Yeah.
As much as I love Scooby-Doo or what, and I don't own it. I can't. I'm just a hired guy to do it. And this is it. We do it. You can love it. And it's like, boy, if you turn out, that's why I felt bad when Scott Innes, when they gave the part to Matthew Lillard full time. Because Scott, you go to his house, it was all Scooby-Doo out. And it was just like, he was the guy for everything else he brought. It wasn't just an actor saying, I'm going to do this part. This is what I'll give you. And that was why I thought, oh man, Scott would have just pimped it every day on the radio. He would have done convention, hospitals, whatever. He does it. I've been out with him with kids. He'll do the voices. He'll do Shaggy and Scooby fighting in one take, nonstop. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know, but it was like, it's a different world, and we're not going to get that back. And even he's like struggling for stuff. you know, because it's a different world. If they're not making stuff, he does more stuff for overseas than here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a different, you know, world right now we're living in. And there's so much content that honestly, I don't know how we keep it together.
Yeah.
We short burst.
Mm-hmm.
Even with what I have to offer. And I have to consider that. You know, if you're working for the studios and their jobs and it comes back to you and you say, okay, I want to do a certain project. I got to find people to put some cash into it and build it up. Maybe it's a GoFundMe. Maybe the future lies in a GoFundMe where I could put out my book and do what I want and get people beyond. I need people to buy into Scott Neely. The same way we would go see a Spielberg movie because it was Spielberg. You didn't really care what he did, but you went to it because it was Spielberg and you bought into it. If people like what I generally do, maybe they'll buy into stuff I do and follow me.
Yeah.
I need to create a brand where I'm the focus in a sense.
Yeah.
Maybe I stay too long in the Scooby circle and I gotta go do my own dog. Right? My life is a series of dogs, like George Carlin said. So I got to do my own dog, and it's just like that would be cool. But I love what I've done, and I'm lucky where I've done. You know, I can't complain too hard. So
Yeah. Your Alfie design is a great design. So
well, thank you.
I think
I spent all
kids
night
would
one
love
night.
him.
I wish I hope so. Yes, I spent all night drawing him one night. I started around 11 or something, and I started drawing him. The next thing I knew, literally, Nikki, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up. I went all night up, and I had more goddamn soul to what I was doing on paper than what I'd been working on the previous month. I couldn't believe it. My neighbor's going out to work, and I'm like, the sun is coming up. My blinds are still closed, and I'm working over my drawing board, and it was just coming together. I loved it. There was so much passion in it. I said, this is coming together. And that was the kind of thing you try to express to people. And it was like, oh, I should put more time into this.
Mhm.
But as with most people, we get sidelined with other projects and stuff like that because art takes time, and you can't. At the end of the day, sometimes you're just shot. You know, when you're creative roles, and they said, well, maybe creative people should only work 4 or 5 hours a day. That's it, because the best stuff you get out, that's it. And then you're just maybe you zone out in ink. It's creative, but it's less. I
Yeah.
know some of these guys, creative, focused storyboards. You're creating. You got so many things to think of, and you got to focus on doing stuff. It's a lot of work and mentally kind of draining on you.
Yeah.
I don't know if people get that. They think, oh, you just snap our fingers and we bang it out. And now with kids, they, oh, you did. I had some kid here say, oh, you probably just wrote your name in that book. How jaded. I had a book. I taught a Saturday afternoon class at a local college. And this is why I said, I got to get out of here. And the kid came up. He was like so jaded. And I was showing him, this is what I do. And he goes, and the kid was like, you probably just wrote your name in that book. Where the
Wow.
credits were. And it's like, really? I was like, yikes. I said, how jaded is this kid? This is like years ago. And I just said, okay, maybe I got to take a break from this because the kids are, if the parents are like that, maybe this is why the kids are like that. And they don't have the appreciation of the process.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be a chef, you got to look at all the mistakes and you got to you got to bake cookies with mom. You got to see what you're doing and what you don't do. And it's like it's the same thing with drawing. I have a kid on LinkedIn. He's an adult now, but he went to come to my drawing classes. His parents used to sign him up every time. They were fantastic. And he was like one of those kids who just draw every. I see amazing little talent, some 6-year-old who draw this amazing cartoon fish. I remember this kid's name was Teddy, and he drew these amazing cartoons. And I showed the parents, look at the quality. This is good. This is real. This is like studio good. And the mother and father was like, ah. So they went out. The mother was more excited. She went out the next day. He had a pad of paper in the spiral boat. He came in, half of it was filled within the next week. I saw him over the course of the week. He just drew. It was amazing. And they go, okay, that's great. And hopefully you inspire some kid. Maybe he's drawing now. Who knows? Maybe not. You never know. But you got to inspire that stuff with kids and you keep them drawing.
Definitely.
And I don't know how you basically do that. There's so much content out there now, even on YouTube, and the AI slop that just spits out. And it's like, wow, okay. It's like there's so much garbage. There's you can't focus on anything, and the short attention span.
Yeah.
I don't that bothers me more than anything is that Sesame Street attention span.
Yeah.
Because you get little short bursts, and maybe that's why Scooby comics were that way. 10 pages, it's a quick in and out. Whoa, 20 pages is too much? Really?
Yeah.
I don't know the line of thinking. It's like these movie guys. Well, we notice if you put some boobies and ass on the screen, we'll put an extra 20 seats in the movie theater. Right? That was like the line of thinking. That was in the original John Hughes Breakfast Club. They wanted the one teacher swimming nude in the school pool. And he shot at the pizza. He said, that's not going to work. And he took it out. But he had to shoot that. And it was like one of those cool behind the scenes things where the studio gets involved. Well, we think if you add this, we can get more revenue if you do this. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I don't know what is it really going to bring more people in?
Yeah.
I think Marvel's in that box right now. And I got to tell you, in 1989, I was so thrilled to see Batman on the screen. That was a triumph, even though he killed people in the movie. And I'm like, what was that? I don't know. But it was like, it was in my glory in 1989 because we finally got it on the screen. And then now you can't do anything without bumping into a superhero show. Everything is based on a cartoon or a comic book or a graphic novel, and it's a movie. There's so much stuff, and I'm like, it's too. I'm not saying it's bad stuff. I'm just saying it's just too much stuff. You got to be just focused on that. If you just stick with Scooby, you're in that right zone. But if you're like me, you're like, oh, this is like too much stuff. I can't digest it all. Right. In large bits like this. We have an entire movie saga. Where do you start? We got 20 movies now. I can go by James Bond. If you like Sean Connery, you got that. You start with Roger Moore. You got 6, you got the 7 movies with him, and you can just do that if you want. Scooby, you can pick any series you want. It's basically the same across the board, except for Velma. That's like a separate thing. But basically, it's all the same characters. They're intact. And I wish they would do that with some of these other characters.
For sure.
That is the one nice thing about Scooby is that there's different iterations of it. Some series look different than others, but the concept is still the same for the most part. And there's something that everyone can like. Like maybe you like a pup named Scooby-Doo or Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Or Mystery Inc. They're different enough that I think everyone can find one iteration of Scooby to like.
I did one panel of a comic book where it had the pup named Scooby-Doo character. It was a flashback, and I think Freddie or somebody held up a photo as young Freddie in the shot from that show. They had to ask permission to do that. Mm-hmm. Because I did it. I said, I don't know if this is going to fly. I did it. I did it. And most of the time, you just go ahead and do it. Because if you ask, they'll just say no. But we did it. And then they went back and he said, no, that's cool. But they could have just said no. But the fact that we had to ask that, it's all Scooby. Isn't this stuff kind of canon? Maybe. Unless you're doing something far out. Isn't it all canon and it's all kind of locked in? It's all official?
Should be.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a weird art style, even the Family Guy look, I can't remember the name of that show, but
Be Cool.
Yeah, Be Cool Scooby-Doo. If you have that look, those stories are canon. I would accept, even though it's a different look, those stories and the content. So if you bring up the villain or something in that would cross over the universe, that it's all part of that. You're not disavowing it. Oh, this is the Marvel 616 universe, and that's the ultimate. I remember getting in an argument with Brian Michael Bendis at a thing going, well, yeah, I said Ultimate Spider-Man is good, but it's not real Spider-Man. He's like, what are you talking about? It's not real Spider-Man. What is it? Alternate universe. He used to get pissy at that. He's like 2001. It's like, what do you mean? I am writing real Spider-Man. No, I get that. That's what you think. But it's not the real Spider-Man that is the normal Marvel universe. This is an alternate universe, the ultimate stuff. But when you start cherry picking stuff from all over the place and mixing and matching, now you take the best stuff out. Even Spider-Man, you get the movies. They cherry pick the best stuff out of those movies. Gwen Stacy dying and all the best moment, and you put them in a movie. It doesn't hit. Well, now you've already burned those couple moments. I mean, that's one of the points. I mean, Scooby's rich with that stuff. That's why I built that Return of the Creeper. I said, maybe this was a Carswell. Maybe he was at this for a while. This wasn't the first banky scam. And I built this whole thing when I saw that pallet of money in that Breaking Bad episode. And I'm thinking, what if he had a pallet in a storage unit with all this money and he dies in prison? Now somebody else is using the Creeper thing. And I had all these I thought this thing out. I said, this is a pure joy. And I thought, well, hell, I told the Scooby Snacks site, I said, well, I should do just rename it and just do something else with it and call it something else, because somebody did do a novel where it's 5 people or 4 people and a dog, and you knew it was like a Scooby-Doo ripoff, but they did their own thing with it. It was that dynamic. And I said, well, great. Maybe that's the way you just have to do it, because I'm spending time on something I don't own.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it for my own thing, but I thought, oh, this would have been cool for Scooby. But even if it was a movie, would they even attempt to do it? And not now. I don't even know what the state of the DVD market is.
Yeah. We haven't gotten a Scooby-Doo direct to DVD movie in a while.
Yeah, a couple of years.
I think
they used to do 2 a year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 22 they stopped, or 23 they stopped Tom and Jerry first.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stopped the Scooby ones right after it. And that was like weird. They had one ready to be sent out, literally to be just animated. Everything else was done on it. The voices, backgrounds, all that stuff was done. Just had to be animated. And it just pulled it. It's like, if you're half an investment in, why not just finish that and then pull the plug? It'd be stopping in the middle of half a comic book, unless you're in dire straits financially. But I thought, Warner Brothers, this was that cash cow. You mean there isn't some parent somewhere who wouldn't buy the new Scooby movie that comes out direct to DVD?
Not just parents, but us,
well, adults,
collectors. I mean, we were buying all the DVDs,
Yeah.
I'm surprised they never did DVDs with variant covers, or some kind of an adult spin, or some kind of a trading card inside, or something else to jazz it. Even as a box set when they come out, doing something extra. When they put the originals out on Blu-ray or something like that, and they upscale the movie. That's a big deal. Obviously, they care about it. If they took an old cartoon and upscaled the original film to Blu-ray quality, they obviously care about the future of the thing.
Yeah.
But they don't, I don't know, with some stuff, I've lost track of some of this stuff, but what they consider to be good. I liked What's New Scooby-Doo. I thought that was great. I thought Simple Plan had the best theme song for it. I love that. And then, but the shows were good on that. And it was like, again, you do so much of that stuff. Maybe they just thought, we've done too much Scooby. We need to let it rest for a bit. And then we'll start it up again.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that's what happened with me. I produced so much work in 2000 that went in the beginning of 2001, and then 9/11 happened, and then a lot of stuff just fell by the wayside. That's when I went to college, our local college, to learn the digital and like Photoshop and stuff. I took time out to get more into that. And then I created so much stuff, and then you just reprint it. Well, at a certain point now, Capstone is doing that. I'm calling them up going, well, what else you got? It's like, well, you're a Scooby guy. Well, no. I'm not just Dennis the Menace or the kid who played him. I can do this too. That's luckily I've got enough stuff in my category, my life, that I've drawn, that I can go, okay, I've done this, fine. But, I'm trying to add more original stuff into it.
Sure.
But I think a lot of these decisions and where they're going, I don't know where tariffs are in the book market is, and the comic book market. There's a lot of stuff that's being considered. How much is a comic book now? Was it $5 a book for a comic book?
Least,
Scooby was what, $2.99 or $3.99?
It was $2.99, yeah.
Okay, that's good. They kept that at the price point, but a lot of comics are $4.99, and it's like, yikes, who has that? If you're a parent, you're like, there's no way we're doing that,
Yeah.
which is a shame. But I grew up
Mhm.
reading comics when they were way cheaper, and we were bitching from 60 cents to 65 cents. That was a big deal in the mid 80s. But I was buying and reading, and a lot of this, I think if you raise them to be into this culture of animation and stuff, they will grow to love it and branch out to other stuff.
Mhm.
Young girls or stuff, they love anime. They love all this My Hero Academia and all this stuff. Oh, that Barnes and Noble, if they're not sitting there just reading the books there and then walk out without paying for something, because you could just sit there and read the book. But anime and manga is like huge. I could see why they
Mhm.
would try to do a Scooby in that version or redesign the characters just to grab a hold of that market.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those little Archie digests are now $10 a piece in Canada,
Really? Wow.
which is, I think, is crazy. I mean, when I was a kid, they were $2 and that was it. I don't think that the cost of living and inflation has actually warranted it being quite that much, because I'm a sucker for any kind of Christmas Archie, and last year they had a couple of them, so I did buy them. But yeah, $10 a piece that's a lot for a tiny little comic book.
I used to have a box of comic books. They were all Christmas themed. Like anytime this growing up, any Batman, Spider-Man, anytime you meet Santa Claus or something, I'd have a Christmas box with just Christmas stories, and it would be
Yeah.
all. I would pull them out during the year, trying to get into the cheer,
Yeah.
which is hard to do as you get older. And it's just like you have that stuff, and I used to like that stuff. I'm surprised. Was the Art Digest? Are they on better paper to justify the price, or is it the same kind of newsprint type thing?
Some of them are still on kind of a newsprint. Other ones are more of like the kind of glossy, kind of like what the regular like trade comic size went to, with that like glossier paper, which
Yeah,
I don't like the glossy paper on a comic book.
it's
I want to
heavy.
be able, I don't know, I want to be able to feel like newsprint paper. I don't know. I don't like the new, I don't like them. They don't, not everything needs to be redesigned. It's okay to leave some things like the way that they were, make it cheaper, but, and again, like you say, even with those, there's like maybe one new story, maybe, and the whole rest of the book is just like stuff I was reading in the 90s. I remember the stories and they're just reprinting them and jacking up the price. So
Well, that's because they're focused on the new Archie where he looks modern now.
yeah.
So they get Dan Parent to do one news story and then just do reprints in the back. So of
Hmm.
course you're going to run into repetitive. If they did the same thing
Yeah.
with Scooby and did the same thing, you're going to have that same issue at some
Yeah.
point too.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's like I'd be surprised. Even that Scooby trade, the greatest mysteries, you could kill a neighbor with that. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a thick trade paperback. That's like heavy, some weight to it. I'd almost rather go cheaper. I've been arguing for years. Go newsprint, really dirt cheap
Yeah.
paper. Keep the
Yeah.
price point low. Oh no, we can't because we're more of a collector's market. The 30-year-olds will bitch because they're picking out Gem Mint 10 to slab a book to make to sell later on the internet. This is going to confuse them, and it's an older market. They're catering to the crowd.
Yeah.
I don't fault them for doing that. You're catering to where the money is going, but some of this stuff is for kids, and I don't know where they're catering to on some things.
Hmm. Yeah.
When they reboot the new Harry Potter again, when they're restarting that up, I mean, Audible.com is next year is doing a brand new, based on the books, a full 100-person cast of Harry Potter based
Wow.
on the actual book. I can't wait for this thing to come out. And
Hmm.
I'm thinking this will be top notch with special effects. It'll be different from the two readings of the books, which are just readings. This will be like a full cast deal. And I'm like, okay, well, who's this marketed towards? The people who watch this movie growing up, or are you trying to get newer people in?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
If I bring up
It's hard to
Scooby-Doo,
tell.
if I bring
Hmm.
up, any of these other things that have just been around, there's some Brazil movie. They had Tomcat, the Hanna-Barbera character. It was an overseas movie they did, animated. It looked really great. I saw part of it on YouTube. And I was like, wow, what? It never got released here. It was done overseas. But why can't they do that here?
Hmm.
I mean, it's characters you already own.
Right.
They're just sitting there.
Yeah.
Again, even though the studio, you get somebody in there who goes, well, we don't know. You can only do what you can do. And that's the thing of it. So people who are
Mhm.
loving it, that's what they say, don't do what you love as a job, because it would break your heart. Because if you say, oh
Right.
man, they're really tanking this thing. I mean, I've never loved anything that, the only time I get frustrated is when you do something and it sits on a shelf or it's gone. I have one thing I did for Golden Books, never saw the light of day. I had the art for it and I sold it, but it was an adaptation of the Gaggle of Galloping Ghost. I
Mhm.
did a coloring book of that, and it looked great. And I still have the page of Shaggy and Scooby swinging across where the alligator is, and all that on the rope, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. And it never saw the light of day ever. I did it. I hurried to get it done. I got paid for it, more importantly, but it's in the archives, and they never, even Dalmatian Press, they never like saw it or got it or whatever. I don't know what happened, but it never saw the light of day. I have copies of it.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of stuff you didn't see. It's something I just want to see. Well, you want people to see it. I spent time baking these burgers, baking this cake. I want someone to take a taste of the cake.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
No, it's too bad.
it's insane. I don't know if you were younger people or kids getting into it. It's just tough. You can only raise your own kids and say, look, I
Yeah.
don't have any. But it's like if you just gotta say, look, this is the stuff I like, and you pass it on.
Yeah.
But if you're rather blasé about other stuff, it's not going to get passed on. And
Hmm.
I'm more important about kids trying to read. I used to do speaking engagements at local middle schools, draw on chats, a couple long boxes of comics um, from donated from my Captain Blue Hen in Newark, Delaware, and stuff. It would donate a whole box, and we'd take them into the school, and it's like that would be the only comics those kids would get for that teacher's room. She's trying to get them to read.
Yeah.
And the most I got out of it was like a thank you letter saying, thanks for coming, whatever, anytime. That's why, I was like, great. But I was like, do these kids ever pursue this stuff? Do they go into the store, graphic novels? Do the parents care? Do they read graphic novels? They're not going to read the monthly comic book.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, you girls have bummed me out. I don't
We're not supposed to be doing that.
know. I hope people, enjoy this somewhat. They get something out of it. But is this the commiseration club?
Well, please tell me if you were going to find a sketch card in a package of Scooby-Doo cards, and it could be done by any artist who has ever done Scooby, and we're going all the way back, could be Ewo, could be Bob Singer, could be Scott Gerald's, could be anybody. What sketch card by what artist would you be the most excited to find in your pack?
I got a couple original pieces by Iwa Takamoto. I'd love to get an original card by him. That would be if you're going to go for the guy, I mean, that would be cool just to get the guy who created it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked his stuff, the simplicity of the line. He could kind of nail it with a gesture.
Hmm.
That's why he was a head character designer. I mean, basically, he knew what he was doing. But I like a lot of stuff. I would like somebody unique. If you got like an Adam Hughes to do a Daphne and Velma or something, just to change it up. And they go, wow, if it looks cool, like he did his version, Adam Hughes did his version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch flying over with her pole and Salem the cat holding onto her, and she's flying above her town. I go, wow, that's awesome. It looked like a modern day, but that was cool. They should release this on a poster, and it was an unused cover. They put it in the back of a trade paperback, like, well, we never used it. Why not? I would have put
Yeah.
that on a shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. That's the kind of thing I would like to see somebody outside the box who normally doesn't do it. But if I was going to come across, it'd probably be Scooby and the Creeper. I don't know why the Creeper
Okay.
sticks with me. I thought that was the coolest character, even though he didn't say much except for Creeper, whatever the hell that was. But but I thought he was, except for the baby chick thing in the middle, which we did get rid of when we did the coloring. We did a coloring book. We got rid of the baby chick scenario. Um, in the middle where Scooby was we got rid of that. But basically, the rest of it was great. I thought that villain was great. And maybe it just hit me at that point in my life. There's something about that episode that came into it. There's a reason why the Lizard is my favorite Spider-Man villain, because it was the first cover I saw with Spidey Super Stories, and it was one of the first villains in an Amigo action figure that went along with my. It was these other things. It was like a police chart with all the strings pointing across the detective, and it's like that's my life, and that's where you could see stuff, and you go, "This is why I like stuff."
Yeah.
I can
Mhm.
pinpoint exact stuff, and I go, "This is why this resonates so strong with me." The Tiki, guy could be the other one for some Scooby fan, or God, there's so many of them, but it was like any episode could just resonate with you specifically. But as a first sketch card, I would like any of it was as long as it was competent.
Yeah.
If it looked like the character, if it looked like somebody was on a lorazepam, then I'd be like, all right, what the hell? I said, well, they approved it. I said, I was like, that's why I wanted to do something really competent. I wanted my cards to be on the money, look like the characters. You pull it out. Ooh, that's a Scott Neely card. That's not ego. I just think I put so much into it because I was trying to make them for the fans.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to do. But
You did a
really,
great job.
I would never, if I saw the list of artists, I would not have put that much effort into it. If I saw, who are these people? Sounds like a Seinfeld thing. Who are these people? And I'm like, what if I just did my card? I said, no. I honestly thought this is going to be a battle of the bands, and all the guys, they're going to go Scooby-Doo cards. They're getting all the dudes who draw this thing. I honestly, when I never inquired who else is there. I just said, I'm going to do my cards the best of my ability and just do what I think is cool. It just shocks me that sounds like I'm crapping on Upper Deck. They were really friendly and everything. Very good. I loved working with them. But it was just like, wow, how do you not get like some of these other dudes?
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Singer, he would have been amazing to get to do these cards.
Yes.
Scott Gerald, Swinton Scott. I mean, there's so many people that are around that could have done these cards and done a great job with them.
Yeah.
What is it with all the Scots who draw Scooby-Doo?
There's a lot of
I did say that we need to have a panel of just the Scots.
There's Scott Shaw. I don't think he draws Scooby, but he did like Flintstones and other Hanna-Barbera stuff. But even he would have fit within this box to ask to do his version of Scooby. He would have been in that cartoony Hanna-Barbera box where you would have got him to do that.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. But I don't know how they pick. They just go to Art Station. Well, this guy looks cool. We'll get him. And I don't know what the thinking was. I honestly thought, oh, this is the first Scooby-Doo they've done in a long time. They were going to get the echelon of people.
Yeah.
That would have made it more collectible in a sense. That was my mentality going. I was really shocked when I didn't even know they had 78 artists. I remember on the back of my card, it had a little number 13, meaning I was like the 13th artist, I think. I still don't know that, but I think it was. My cards are all marked 13 in like little silver on the back. And it's like 78 artists, and I don't know anybody. That's when I sent people the list. I said, do you know anybody? Maybe it's some animator just storyboards on one episode of this series, and I thought, well, maybe somebody would know that. And I was like, I don't know anybody except for Joe Rubinstein, who was a Marvel Comics inker. He's an artist too, but he was mostly an inker. I don't think he's ever drawn Scooby-Doo. So I don't know why they would have picked it. He's more Captain America if I think of Joe Rubinstein.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's another drop ball. I don't know. But when I brought up to Matt Dumford, he was like, well, you can do whatever. I don't know if he knew I drew Scooby. Like I had history with him or cred. Because when I brought it up, can I do this? He said, oh, that's cool. Like I said, when I showed him my initial first batch of little sketches, he was like, oh, these look just like the characters. And I'm like, well, no shit. Isn't that the deal? I was like, wait a minute. Do you know what my job is to make it look like this is what it is? Well, you can do any interpretation, color. I said, well, can I do black and white? And he's like, no, you could don't do them all like that, but you could do a couple. And I said, I'm going to do them all color.
Yeah.
I was going to do the one with the Dracula one, like a
Mhm.
horror movie like in grayscale. That would have been kind of cool.
That would have been
But
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, but I didn't. I can do it now. I got my Scott Neely card. But I don't know what to tell you. I wish I could pimp them more. I kept pushing it off
Yeah.
for a year, and it was like, I don't know what to tell you guys, as fans. It's kind of disappointing. It's like in perpetual limbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even give you a date for the Phineas and Ferb stuff. I just talked to the editor this afternoon. She said my covers were approved. She was happy. Thank me. Beautiful job. No, and I said, well, when are we? I said, well, we don't know. We're still like coloring half the book. They still in approvals for that. Then we had to do all the lettering, and then we have to assemble, and then you got another final approval. Every time you submit it back right now, Disney's taking like a month.
Yeah.
3 weeks to a month. It's a cover. I gave this to you in January 6th. What time is it right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what's just killing you. And for the money you be paid, it's good money, but it's not. What the hell? That's like you're months out. If I was physically drawing a book, I don't know how you would live. You would have to be doing other jobs. And when they come back to you, now they expect you to drop your life. Here's the tweaks you need to make.
Yeah.
And just continue on, and then you're stuck. And it's like, where do it's like, I can't do that financially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like anybody else. I need to have money rolling in. We got to resituate this whole thing, or you need to speed up the approvals. It was never like that before.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the scariest thing that scares me the most. It's just, it sits there. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I don't know how to fix that because I don't know. I don't even know the answers. I don't even know anybody else there, really, especially Warner Brothers. They're mostly all gone now. Or they moved in the one woman I know. I think she went to Warner Brothers Discovery Plus, but the rest of them now are like gone.
Mm-hmm.
Disney, I still have a couple holdovers, but with Warner Brothers, it's a whole different crowd.
Mm-hmm.
They either got fed up and got out, or they moved on.
Hmm.
Well, on that depressing note, well, I hope this hasn't been too long. I hope you've enjoyed this.
Oh,
No,
this
it's
has
been
great.
wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. It sounds maudlin. I'm trying to keep it light. It's like after 10. I'm like, wow. It's like a long ass dinner date. What the hell? Like, what is going on here? I hope people find this and they'll be saying, oh, Neely's a bitter old man. What is his deal? He's a hack.
It's good because, everyone kind of looks at the cartoons and they're like, oh, people just drew them and, they made a cartoon. No one really understands what you guys have gone through in order to get these things created. Comic books, people think, oh, you drew a comic and then, that was it. They don't realize that you have to go through this whole process of having approvals and having to redo things. And so it's good. It's good that you gave us that part of it.
Yeah.
Well, usually if they give you enough, the approvals go faster. For whatever reason, after the pandemic, everything just slowed down. It used to be, I went back on my old Phineas and Ferb work back in 2010, and I would see, I pumped out stuff. I got an approval in 3 days. Banged out the final work. 5 days later, all the final work was turned in, approved. Done deal. Check almost in the mail. You got to wait 30 days, but it was like done. Now it just like sits. And it's like, that is like, wow, what is going, did we lay people off? It's not like Doge hit Warner Brothers. We got rid of the position. We had one person. We have to schedule. We got so much coming in. Upper Deck told me they blamed it. They were a new vendor with Warner Brothers. The next stuff they do should move faster. But they contacted me in November of 23. Here we are now. They're finally, well, it's still got coming out. I mean, at this point, I'd almost hold them in a warehouse and restructure a time, maybe around Christmas time or something.
Yeah.
To remarket it at this point, just to redo it. Maybe, but you would think they would tell all the artists, like what's going on. Maybe they don't know. And even the guys who handle stuff, they're like, look, once it leaves our hands, it's in the distribution. It just sits there,
Mhm.
which is kind of a shame. But I've showed my stuff out of it. I'd be interested to see the rest of the cards. I see the
Yeah.
list of the base cards and all this other stuff, and I'm like, I'd be interested to see that,
I'll
what the rest
send
of them look
you
like.
ones that I
Mhm.
found. I'll send them to you both.
Are they sneaking out?
People have posted them on X.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are there any other artist sketch cards out? Have you run across anyone saying I did this for the sketch cards?
Just the people that I found on X.
Okay.
They said that they did them for the Upper Deck sketch cards. They posted them the day that they were supposed to come out because they posted them in the morning and you guys didn't find out, I think, until the afternoon on that day that
Hmm.
they weren't coming out that day.
I had it ready and I was going to do a documentary thing and a post and all. And I had written Matt and he said, let me go ask permission. And then he came back and said, no, go ahead. You're good to go. He
Mm.
checked, go post your stuff. And then the date got pulled. But I only knew one guy on LinkedIn who posted his first. And I said, oh, does this mean we can post them now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was that March 19th or whatever it was date, and it didn't happen. I said, well, now it's April 30th. Can we? I don't know. And it's like, we want these things to be out because I'm sitting with the artist proofs. I'd almost put them up and sell them right now and try to
Mm.
get some money
Mhm.
in for them. But I don't know. They're like, well, if you haven't mentioned it, then don't post. If you haven't posted, don't post yet. But if you have, just let people know what's going on. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, that's what I'm doing. So.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a shame. It's just lost momentum
Sure.
in terms of putting something out there that you would have liked people to see sooner. That's all.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Well, there's a definite lack of marketing, I think, across the board because they they could rebuild momentum that they have lost by just having all of the artists post their cards now and
Mm.
be like, hey guys, this is potentially what you might get. And that would, I think, would drive a lot more people to be like, hey, I'm going to get a couple of those cards and just see. By showing people like what you could get, I think would be a much better marketing strategy than just like keeping a lid on it and then they come out and it's like, who even knows?
Yeah, I think that's right. I would do that too. That sounds right. You just get people to post their stuff to generate. But if it's another 4 or 5 months from now, who's going to care? It's kind of at it unless you keep it going, that momentum. Because at a certain point, it's
So,
just the diminishing returns on that.
Yeah.
You
mhm,
want it to
mhm.
be fresh, and oh no, they're finally out.
Yeah.
Because I wrote on LinkedIn, I was like, I feel like the boys cried wolf. Okay, this is the date. Now this is forget that date. And there's the other. I'm not saying anything anymore. I posted my stuff when I finally get the email. I will let you guys know first what's going on. I'll probably get blacklisted. They'll be like, "The hell with this dude. We get anything else?" They're happy with me, but it was like when I did the cards, he said, "No, this is great," And I was like, "Well, if you have me back, hopefully it goes quicker next time," because they were kind of fun to do, but at a certain point, I can get my fix. I have the Scott Neely card.
Yeah, there you go.
I just got to buy markers. I'll be taking a road trip to Michael's.
Did you have to use markers on the cards? Did they tell you what medium you needed to use, or could you have done whatever traditional medium you wanted?
No, you could have done. They had anything: acrylic paint, oil paint. If you could get it to fit on a card, I don't know how you would do that, because I was getting bleed through
Mm,
on the one with the gypsy
hmm
woman in the crystal ball. That started to bleed. That was the first card I did, and I was saturating, trying. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I was starting to bleed through a little bit, but it not bad. I caught it in time when I flipped
hmm
over, and it was starting to go through. So I was able to manage the markers, but you could do whatever you wanted. It had to be pen and ink. They wanted it to be in color for sure. However
hmm
you achieve that was fine, but I saw some half-ass color, just flat coloring. And they said in the guide, think about shading, think about rim light, make stuff look cool. Which is why I
hmm
love my werewolf guy with Shaggy and Scooby and the stone, and that's like one of my. It's like one other card I would have kept for myself. I said, damn, that's good. I like that one a lot. So, a couple of them, I was like, man, I would have kept some of these. I would have given them the best stuff. That one Snow Ghost one with like the sky and Shaggy's holding Scooby and the Snow Ghost is over his shoulder looking at the snow the way it came down. That was one shot with paint on a sponge. You couldn't screw it up. I mean, it was like one of those artistic things. I had to be in that zone. You had to be there because it was like, this is ridiculous. This is a trading card. This is how much care and preparation I put into it because you're going to get one shot. In a computer, I can do 3 overlays with snow and just turn off the layer. I can't do that with one marker. You got to lay it just right in that right spot. There's a whole skill. That's the good thing about hand and hand-drawn stuff. And if you get pristine in your hands, you go, wow, this dude was money in that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't need some guy. I don't see a bunch of pencil underneath the drawing. It's like, well, no. I've seen Iwa Takamoto stuff. I have pencil stuff. I've seen magic marker. An original Takamoto. He just took a Sharpie and just banged out a Scooby.
Yeah.
You know where the stuff goes sometimes, not always. But I do struggle with it. You can see it on the page. As an artist, you can see it on the page before we draw it. That's not true. I've had that 3 times in my life in 30 years. That's like once every 10 years. I have this moment of clarity. I did this with Phineas and Ferb. I'm going to repost this piece again, maybe on LinkedIn. This is the first page of this story I still have. And it's Y Games is what the story is called. And it's them building a theme park with this giant thing in the backyard. And I saw this thing clear as day. And I sketched it on art paper with a ballpoint blue pen, no eraser. And it's all there. Yeah. And it's like, man, I kept it because I was like so impressed with myself. I pulled that out and go, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'm going to say, God damn, I was money that day. I didn't phone it in. There's other times you're like, oh shit, I just want to go out this weekend and I got it. You don't want to work the weekend. I nuked the DVD deal. Mask of the Blue Falcon. I was supposed to do DVD cover. It was right after my father died in 2012. And my father gave himself up for work. And I remember I got to go to work. The place will fall apart without me. And I said, right after he died, I said, what am I doing? And they said they gave me this like on January or July 2nd. They needed it done right on July 4th weekend. And I had a barbecue I could have gone to. They needed it like right after July 4th. And that's the way it always is. We need you to do like these 3 comps for Scooby and the Blue Falcon. They gave me the roughs and kind of idea stuff. And I looked at it, I said, and I was ready to go. And I said, I can't do this. And they're like, what? What the hell? We got to do it. I said, you know what? I need more time. This is I think they don't care. You're either going to get it done or you're not. And I just got put on the pay no mind list. They never call me again. And, part of me was like, all right, well, I have my shot. And I was like, no big. I did some DVD stuff. So it was like, cool. But it was like, I don't regret that because I'd rather spend time, out at a barbecue or something now. Yeah. I'm not going to kill myself with work because it doesn't get me anywhere. Yeah. I'm a company guy. They don't care about me. Mm-hmm. I'm a cog in the wheel. They will replace me. Everybody's replaceable right now. And it's just like, why am I giving up my life for that? A lot of stuff changed after my father died. And I said I wasn't going to give up my life in the bitterness he had when the job ousted him because he was sick. And it was just like, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, if I walk now, if I'm working now and it's a beautiful sunny day, I'm going to take an hour off and go walk around the block. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy this sunny day because who knows tomorrow I could be gone, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, I got to look at this philosophically. I'm not going to give myself up to the job because some suit needs it. And then they don't give you a complimentary job back. The thing I posted on my blog recently was the Scooby-Doo Earth Day cover. I remember Janine Schaefer was the editor on Scooby-Doo. She needed that the couple days before Christmas. I did that on Christmas Day for her because she forgot Diamond Distribution. She needed a cover. I said, I got you. You know what she did? She thanked me. I got it done right after Christmas, 26th for her. Had it done. Well, even Warner Brothers was there. They sign off and go like Christmas Eve, like, yeah, go ahead with this concept. I did 4 concepts. Here, do this. I said, great. and I did the cover, turned it in, and she gave me the next 2 covers to do. And then she gave me plenty of time to do them as a thank you. That's a good editor.
Yeah,
You hooked
absolutely.
me up afterwards. That's a good editor. And I did the
Mhm.
one with the ant, and then I did my favorite cover with the mummy guy and the alligator and the giant snake
Mhm.
and the jungle thing. I love that. That was awesome. That came together on the page. And then you get these other rush ones. I did one with Scooby and a Witch, and that was another 24-hour. Harvey Richards said, I need a cover. It's always with Diamond. I need a cover tomorrow. It's like, well, what do you want? Is it the Witch? And they're in front of the White House. It's like, dude, you know how hard the White House is to draw? And he's like, I need a cover. I said, no problem. And I did it because a lot of guys, they would hook you up later on with jobs.
Mhm.
They forget the rotation of people and they would give you to set you up.
Mhm.
It is once you get in good with people, they do treat you well. But once you, like I said, I just pissed them off with the DVD stuff, and it was like they weren't going to hear it. And it's like I knew I was replaceable, but it's like at this point, what can I do?
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, I got to, I can't. It's just wrong to be given up because they're just cashed you out. They'll get somebody else. Scooby will not fall apart if I don't draw it. Somebody else will draw. They got plenty of other talented people out there. I'm glad of the time I've had with it. It's longer than a marriage for some people,
Mhm.
and I've got stuff that's in print and probably will be in print. And if not, I got my name snuck into it. So when it does see reprinting, you'll be seeing it. There's like a snowmaker and there's like a crate with Neely Incorporated written on it. I snuck my name in wherever I could on stuff because I knew they wouldn't put my name on stuff.
Right.
But I have all those in my archive. Like I said, I did this. So I'm kind of happy with my life the way it is right now. I don't know where it'll be in another year or two, the way the industry is going, but this is like everybody.
Yeah.
That's the real sad part, especially if you get older. I mean, like Scott Gerald's, he's an older guy, and I'm like 54 now at this point. I look like I'm 18, I know, but I'm just saying it's it's a tougher because now I get the ageism thing kind
Yeah.
of working against me. And I know I don't work as fast where I could work 4 projects, work 36 hours. Only one time I've done that. Not for this, not for Scooby, but I've done that before. And it's like, I just don't choose to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I can do the
Mhm.
work and stuff, but some of this stuff is more intense. Phineas and Ferb and other stuff is so detailed. You got to be in it. You really can't have a looser time. Warner Brothers stuff is much more looser and fun. DreamWorks stuff is impossible, really hard, really, really hard. Disney is in the middle. So it's like Warner Brothers is easy, Disney there, and then DreamWorks is really tough because they put every nuance of detail in their stuff.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the way it goes. But I was invited, to work with Dream. They were going to do stuff in house. It was some caveman thing. They wanted, and I was just like, no, you know, I wanted to keep my name on stuff. That
Sure.
was a major consideration. I said, I'm going to stay independent. I was invited to go into the Disney Storybook Artist Group way back in 2001. And I didn't do it because you get absorbed into a group, you get constant work, but there's no identity. And I'm
Yeah.
like Dustin Hoffman and Wag the Dog. I want the credit, right? I want the credit. And that made my whole career. I got guys who would call me, dude, my kid was coloring in a Scooby-Doo. And I saw this dude, Scott Neely, in a coloring book. Is that you? I said, yeah, dude, that's me. He said, yeah, I couldn't believe it. He's like, yeah, I would believe me. When the Golden Books would tell you the people there, I was the only one who asked for a credit in a coloring book, demanded it. I said, I want the credit. You got to be kidding me because most people didn't want credit. When I started doing that, other people did because all that stuff gave me a bountiful of
Mhm.
word of mouth.
Right.
And people knew who I was. Warner Brothers knew who I was from those books. They gave me the Cartoon Network stuff to do auditions for all that shit. And I got all those licenses for that. Did auditions. They loved all that. And then I stayed with Scooby. And then he moves. Once word of mouth gets in there, people
Mhm.
like what they, when you work with them, it works great.
Yeah.
But keeping your name and your identity, that's great. And I have something to show people I can show them my Winnie the Pooh, Shrek, Strawberry Shortcake, Power Rangers, Jungle Fury, Ed, and Eddie. I can show them all this stuff, and I go, "There's my name on it," and it's like that kind of makes it, It's like
Yeah.
at least I did something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
People are like full of crap anymore. I did this, and it's like no, and it's like no, I did this work. This is really cool. It's a cartoon, but it's cool. This is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you should be proud of what you do. And you absolutely should be very proud of your career and all of the wonderful properties that you've worked on, not just Scooby, but all of them. And just know that there are definitely fans out there who appreciate the amount of work and detail that you put into everything and how you approach it and your passion for it. And yeah, take the credit for it. If you did it, take the credit for it. We will certainly spread any credit that we can for you around. And yeah, just thank you for all of the work that you've done, because this entire industry feels like it's becoming a lost art. Animation, comic books, print books, in some way. I mean, it's like we've been saying, it's getting a little bit scary. Like, what is the future going to hold for that? But the one good thing is that some of us, we collect the books, we still have them, we can share them with other people, we can talk to people, spread the word. And the one good thing about technology is, as long as you bought the DVDs when they came out, we've still got them. So when streaming goes belly up, who cares? Whatever. Got a DVD player.
As long as you got a generator and the power goes out, you can still watch them.
Exactly.
Even if the power goes out, I got an art pad and a pencil.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Well, any for Scooby fans, I put my effort into the work. I try to make the best product because I am a fan, and I try to make it for fans.
Yeah.
And that's the best I can do. At least you get somebody passionate. I'm not trying. There's only a couple of times where I was really bored where I said, okay, I hacked. I can point to specific things, which I won't, that I did, that I go, okay, I realized a real hack on this one. But there's this, once I got into it fresh and I got it fresh out of eyes, I got excited and I take a hold of it and go on to it. So I am quite proud of that. And a lot of my old stuff is back in print. If you like Phineas and Ferb, they're reprinting all this awesome stuff in beautiful hardcover and paperbacks now. I feel like a Star Trek actor. I made the show. It's dead. It's a dead show, and now I'm living off past glory. And it makes it seem like it's fresh content. No, I did this 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like it's hip now. They don't know. Now I'm killing it because they'll be watching this going, he's like, I knew he was a hack. It's like, no, he's like, I got this stuff and it's coming out. It benefited me. I couldn't believe that. It's like they brought back my Star Wars card. They brought back literally right when things were going to hell. The Scooby trade was put back in print for the greatest mysteries. I said, whoa, this is an omen. And then I knew Phineas and Ferb was coming back. I didn't even know a show, but I said, they're reprinting this stuff. And I was like, this is awesome. Because that was all good stuff. And unless you bought that stuff, a long time ago, it recycles back in. But I've done a lot of good stuff. I wish they would kind of put back. I don't think Power Rangers Jungle Fury is coming back, but I didn't even want to do that, but somebody told me, "Oh no, dude, you got the best show with the best designs on that." I just lucked out with that. But I spent a year on Power Rangers, and that was all good stuff.
Yeah.
There's no market for because every year they switch out a different show. It's Power Rangers, but it's a different thing. But I wound up working on the cool version of it. But it's been exciting, and I can't really complain with stuff. If I get something really cool and Scooby new, I'll let you guys know of it,
Please do.
Definitely.
Because I try to get the word out, for fans. It's just been a sad couple years for Scooby. Now you're really I can't believe they stopped the comic. Really, I did not see that coming, honestly.
I think we kind of knew that it was coming at some point because the latest Scooby-Doo and Batman one was supposed to be like just an ongoing comic, and they ended it at 12. And then when they moved Scooby-Doo Where Are You from monthly to every other month, it's kind of like, okay, like, is this the beginning of them phasing it out? So
no, they did that with Looney Tunes, and they just did every 2 months, and that was just to save money. And that was, like I said, if that's all you draw, you got what source of income whenever. Even the
Mhm.
colorist I knew who worked for Heroic Age, who was coloring, she had to go get another work completely. You just couldn't make it financially on that.
Mm.
And colorist is the worst job in comics because you literally kill yourself with all kinds of crazy hours, and you need to turn over a book in like a day and a half. It's insane. I don't know what they do. I mean, health wise, I'm like, the hell with that. I can't, let's schedule this stuff properly. But
Yeah.
comics has always been that quick change dollar thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you try to get in the quality where you can. So I don't know. But, I hope something else comes back Scooby wise. But it would be great if they reprinted the old stuff again.
Mm.
Absolutely.
It's just sitting there. See, Nikki, you need to hit the lottery and go buy the start a publishing company. And then at the time, I think it was only $1 million for the rights for Cartoon Network and Scooby. This is like 20 years ago now, 2004 or something.
I do
And
wonder what it would be for the rights, and then if somehow like a bunch of us could raise the money and buy the rights to Scooby. Because I think as fans, I mean, we would hire the right people or, figure it out with people that are in the Scooby community. There's a lot of great artists in the Scooby community. But
well,
yeah.
I know with Warner Brothers, if you make a product, you have to come at them with like, I think it was like $50,000 in cash up front. You have to have a business plan. You have to have a long-term plan for your product. You have to have all these things. Kevin told me this at Warner Brothers a long time ago. He said, "We just don't give out the license to some Nimrod who wants." That's why you put a lot of money. You got to have a plan. You got to know what you're doing. You got to have a long-term plan, goals and set in mind, all this etched in paper, and you submit it and you pay this fee for the thing. Then they'll okay it if they want to bother. I've known guys who want to try to make a Scooby lamp and other stuff, and they just get, no, forget it. Even if it was quality, you're not adhering to their rules and what they want done.
Right.
So, but it could be done. I don't know why, at a certain point, maybe it's a control thing. If they just lessen the fee and say, look, IDW, it's open. You're doing
Mm.
it. But the thing is, if they hire the artist, what's IDW paying for artists?
Mhm.
If it's going to be, is it going to be less money if you're making 150 a page? Are they going to take less than that? I mean, do pencil and ink for certain rates. I was making like 250 a page. And it's like, if you're not, I was making top tier on my cover. I mean, they gutted the cover rate at DC. And they said, oh, no, you can ask for more money back if you can. That's your old rate. Well, that's not what they're saying now because this is what they're complaining. So if you're making that, if you go to any of these other studios, there's like, oh, they take $100 a page or 150. Do you want to kill yourself all day drawing thing if you can do it easy, or maybe you lessen on the panels or something? I don't know.
Mhm.
These are all considerations to make because you have to pay everyone down the line. Then you got to pay printing costs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for rambling, but it's like basically these are all considerations if you were going to take it into. And I got to tell you, I don't know what's going on with the tariffs. The comic book printing is done in Canada. Some
Mhm.
Marvel stuff is done here in Pennsylvania, but it's basically everything is printed in Canada. Even if you brought back all the paper comes from China.
Yeah.
The local newspaper I work for as an editor, the paper came from Mexico. We were printed at Gannett, who prints USA Today every month or every day, and they do 400 other newspapers. The paper was coming from Mexico. We're all other newspapers. So if you got tariff, how is that going to cost? How's that going to crush an industry?
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a consideration to make. This is not bashing on Trump or anything like that, but whatever. This is like actual thing we have to worry about. I know
Mhm.
DC Comics and the rest. Maybe that's why maybe they pulled Scooby just
Yeah.
to lessen their overhead costs. Possibly they wanted to give it a break and say, let
Mhm.
this thing breathe. We got enough stuff there. Let it breathe. We'll do trades. They'll digest
Yeah.
and then keep it out there. And then we'll come back with a mini series or something. Maybe we'll do Scooby Apocalypse, something like that, unique or some twist on it. And today we'll do that
Yeah.
or a
Mm.
mini series, 12 issues. I thought Scooby and Batman mini 12 issues. That was in and out. That was their format. If they did it ongoing, it's a new 12 issues, keep it going,
Mhm.
but it's 12 issues every year or
Right.
whatever it does. So it
Mm.
seems like it's a full thing.
Mhm.
but I don't know what their line of thinking. I'm not there. And if they listen to me, they tell me to bugger off. Imagine being an artist, being a voice artist. I see them all complaining online about AI.
Yeah.
They're scanning in voices in AI, and some guy on YouTube is complaining. I mean, you go to LinkedIn, you'll see all the great animation people. They're all like in petrified fear.
Mhm.
And just with artists, why can't you? I'd love to see. Why don't I scan in Scooby-Doo line art and just create AI just to see what it could do comic book wise?
Mm.
Why you tell me somebody at Warner Brothers isn't trying that in a back room just to see what happens?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, why not? You're not even reprinting it. When you saw the Tom and Jerry cartoon, it was by text. They made one. Did you? I think we talked about that before. They
Mhm.
scanned in all the Tom and Jerry, and it was just by text, and it was like scary. I'm like, it was really good. I couldn't really crap on it for a minute. It had flaws, but if you're a 5-year-old kid, are they gonna care?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where the starting point. It's almost like Skynet is unleashed, and it's like, oh boy, here come the Terminator. It's like that's the thing. I worry about that. They could be scanning in my work. I mean, I know whatever. It's their characters,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's what worries me as an artist, though. So you just got to go do your own thing. If you do handcrafted art, look at that. You have
Yeah.
something physical to show in front. I think that's going to come back. I believe with Steven Silver on that this thing will somehow arc or create a niche where you can make a living with original art and make something go of it, Etsy or whatever. But even those sales are because people are broke right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what's what. But I'm going to try to do sketch cards, cheaper one, even that, just the in and out, include the shipping on them. I think it's a great thing to get stuff out there for fans and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I think it'll be great.
Definitely.
And like I said, like from all the Upper Deck cards I've seen, yours are definitely the best. They're on point for Scooby. Um, yeah, and this will give people a chance to, get something drawn by you on a sketch card because who knows when Upper Deck cards are coming out.
well, they're just basic cards, but I don't know with sketch cards. But even if you went to a convention and stuff and get comic sketches or,
Yeah.
it's a crowd that buys art. And I had certain buyers who would buy my covers and whatever, but for something different that was lower price point, they just get people interested. Something small they can own, they
Mm,
can just look at, put in a box or something, and look at every now and then. I think it's kind of a cool little thing, like a
yeah.
memento.
Very.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We could all tank by tomorrow.
Well, we'll hope
Okay.
for the best.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, any final questions? This is before 11. I turn into a pumpkin at midnight here. I turn into a Scooby snack at midnight, and it's not pretty.
I know you've answered all of my questions.
Yeah, I think you've answered all of mine too. And again, we're just like, thank you so much for coming and talking to us and for giving such honest answers and opinions. It's very refreshing to be able to discuss these things because they're issues that affect real people that
Yeah.
are just trying to live their lives and stuff, and it's affecting the stuff that we love. So it's good to talk about it and raise awareness for it. And hopefully at some point the powers that be will pay attention and be like, huh, maybe we should rethink how we're doing stuff or how we're treating people and like get back on track, cartoons for kids, make it a thing.
Yeah.
Pay your artists on time, cut down on the bureaucracy and all the red tape. Like, come on, we just want content to enjoy and to make life better because life sucks on its own. That's why we need Scooby. That's why we need all of this stuff to make life suck a little bit less.
Well, it's been cool. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm surprised. Yeah, you didn't need to get. I'm gonna answer. You answer. Give me a question. I'll answer it. I don't. The questions beforehand. I'm like, what are we talking about? Scooby artists. Oh, they're gonna put me on the pay no mind list. Like, I don't think the studios care, but certain people may. I'll talk to anybody. Shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I like talking about the art in the industry, and a lot of what you heard tonight is the stuff other artists talk about when we sit at a diner and we go, "Uh-oh, what is?" I mean, I haven't talked recently. We got, but it's like we all got these fears,
Yeah.
and this is like across the board. And I see big names and talent. And you go on LinkedIn every day. It's enough to make you pop a pill because you're looking at it for your blood pressure, and like, you're all on the same boat.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's across a whole bunch of fields in the creative fields, and we're watering down the creativity. So I can only do my little bit.
Yeah. Well, hopefully things will change and art will be a thing again, because AI art is not, it's
Not
not.
art. No.
No, I'd be interested to see what if they scanned in and did Scooby as a digital or an AI, just to see. I'd be interested
Yeah.
to see if that worked. For the money they would put in the time that they would put into it, not like some fan putting together, just doing I mean, like an official studio doing it, because they're aiming that way.
Yeah.
They must be.
I'd imagine. Yeah. Yep.
All right, on that positive note, I'll be off in the back killing myself.
This was great. Thank you so much for your time. We very much enjoyed talking to you and learning about everything, and yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Very good. Thank you. Good night.
Good
Have a
night.
good night. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, August, Garrett Spencer, Paul the Scooby Dude, and Jesse. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE, and illustrator, cartoonist, and graphic designer Scott Neely. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms, or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and X as @ScoobyPanel. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network, where you can find all things geek. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Scooby Panel logo by Garrett Spencer. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby panel.